Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
And this is our science fiction movie podcast. We get together every week, we watch the movie and we talk about it. And it just so happens that Warner Brothers are threatening us this year with a fourth Matrix movie. So it makes sense that we have to do the previous three. So today's kind of a big day, because today we're talking about The Matrix.
Whoop whoop. I'm excited to start the franchise. I haven't watched these films in forever.
I saw the first one not too long ago, a couple of years ago. 2 and 3 though, I don't think I've seen them since like maybe 2005 or 6. Like I saw them in theaters, and I saw them maybe once again a couple of years later, and that was it.
The third one I only saw once in theaters. The second one I saw multiple times in theaters because I was trying to figure it out.
Was it a challenging film?
Yes. Do you not remember the last 15 minutes?
I do vaguely remember it. I don't remember being.
I also really liked it at the time. I liked the second one. I was, I had taken the blue pill, I guess, and was like, all right, a Matrix sequel, and the action was great. But I think by the last time I watched it, I'm like, I don't think this movie makes sense.
Well, I'm not going to talk too much about the sequels today, because I think it's been too long. I have general perceptions of them, but it has been such a long time that I'm curious to find out how they fare when we get to them in the very near future. But today we actually get to talk about the one that's, good. The Matrix. 1999, kind of this oddly high budget, maybe not experimental, but kind of a high budget genre film that was given kind of a platform. Not tentpole budget, because budgets had kind of increased to over $100 million already by that time, but this was a $70 million budget, give or take, and that was still pretty big at the time. Obviously inflation's meant that 70 million is not even, so it's a medium budget movie now at best. But this is a cyberpunk science fiction film, which I guess I'll just say full spoilers just from the get-go here, because it's The Matrix, and I feel like, if you haven't seen The Matrix, go watch The Matrix and then come back and hear us talk about it. But it's just this crazy idea about everyone on Earth is actually living in a digital dream world, because machines are using us on a farm as batteries, and this is just a fake world to keep us at bay, so that we're docile and can be controlled as they rule the world. And that's that's your basic premise of the Matrix. And our main character is someone who we go through the story of him realizing that he's not in the real world, him being woken up, taken out of it, and also a little bit of important detail here, he's also the chosen one who is going to then save the human race and defeat the machines, potentially. So that is The Matrix in a nutshell. It almost sounds really hokey when you just slap it together in a couple of sentences like that, but it's actually excellent, and it holds up. Because that was the thing, when I watched that a couple of years ago, it had been a long time since I'd seen it, and I was curious, like, is this one that's going to hold up for me, or is it going to be one that's like, I can see why it was successful, but maybe it's not hitting the notes for me as much as it used to when I was younger. And if anything, it's gotten better with age. I think it actually hits every note it was supposed to. It hits even more. The director's recently talking about how it was actually also a story about being trans, which, watching it through that lens this time, which is the first time I've watched it with that kind of knowledge, added like an extra layer to a lot of the things that were going on. So this will be one of these ones where we sit and talk about what things mean, and the themes and the metaphors, and how the visuals and the story all adhere to that. But so this is the first time you watched it in a while. How did you feel about watching it again?
I think it's excellent. Like it definitely holds up. Even, some of the special effects maybe feel a little bit dated now, but at the time they were so, revolutionary. Like technology had to be invented in order to make this movie, and it was just so of its time and ahead of its time. And I think there's just it's so smartly written also, with all the different layers. Like if this was the movie that, like if it just stood on its own and there was no sequels, I think the metaphor even of being the one can translate really well to us who are like have this potential that we haven't been able to tap into because we are like stuck in a system, in a machine. And I really do think it's like I know it's not that modern, but like it's a modern masterpiece.
For a second, I thought you meant us personally, because you said us and then paused as if you meant just us two. Like it works for us because we're special and we haven't broken out of this shit.
Are special, but I mean the royalty.
Yes. No, I agree. What's funny you mentioned the effects is that bizarrely, other than maybe the music that pops up occasionally, which obviously is just dated because it's all late 90s and stuff, but is that the effects, the big sequences that everyone talks about with the effects and the bullet time, are probably the things that have in a way dated the most because they feel so entrenched in the time, whereas the movie's actually very well made and is so... It's really difficult to sort of define how someone's captured lightning in a ball. But I truly believe this is one of those movies where the premise, how it's told, the performers they've got playing the roles, the way the thing is paced, the narrative structure, like you said, the layers that are all going on with the real world, the Matrix, motivations both in and outside of the Matrix. There's so much things that this could easily be a mess. And the funny thing is the Wachowskis, like, their career since this has kind of proven that this could have been a mess. Like, this could have been a mess, this film. Because I enjoyed Speed Racer for what it was. It was kind of fun and pulpy and whatever. Cloud Atlas was kind of a... Like, I appreciated what it was trying to do, but it was kind of a wreck. Like...
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen a lot of the Wachowskis' work except for The Matrix, and I did go see Jupiter Ascending, and that was...
I heard that was... Hard. Yeah, I heard that was a...
But I am looking forward to watching it again, because I'm going to keep a more open mind, because it was pretty out there when I watched it.
Is that you saying that it's sci-fi, so we have to do it at some point, so therefore you'll definitely see it again? Oh.
We'll do it before Matrix 4.
Oh, no. Oh, I didn't agree to do that this year. How dare you? It's. I mean, I've not. To be fair, I do want to point out I have not seen Bound, which was the low budget movie they did before this. And,
I don't think I've seen it either. And
I've heard good things about that. So I'm curious to check that out. It's not a sci-fi movie, obviously.
Movie that got them like permission to do this one. I think this is. I think also The Matrix. I saw in the trivia that they had worked on it for like they had worked on just the script alone for like 5 years.
Which I think.
Really a lot into.
Which I think shows, and I'm going to say this right now. This is the musician and the album problem, is that a musician or a band have years and years, technically their whole life in some ways, to make their first album.
Mm-hmm.
Album number 2, everyone expects it 2 years later. I think that is the number one problem with the Matrix sequels. I think not that they didn't have the ideas of where it might go afterwards. I'm sure there was some sort of like idea and game plan or whatever, but I think you can tell that they spent a long time really thinking through this first movie and knowing exactly what every beat needed to be, knowing how it all fit together. And I think those sequels that maybe have some good ideas in them, and again, we'll find out and rediscover all this when we see them again, but I think that's one of the biggest things is this movie is incredibly tight. There's like 1 or 2 dodgy lines of dialogue, maybe that I noticed, and that was like it. The thing is like rock solid, like throughout.
Yeah, there's just a couple of scenes where I'm just like, okay, I don't need my hand held right now, but thank you, Morpheus.
In fact, well, Morpheus is the worst line in the movie. I'll give it, and it's not that Morpheus is bad or that Laurence Fishburne's bad. He's mostly amazing, but he does have the worst line of dialogue in the movie. It's when he's explaining everything to Neo, when he takes him into the simulator and he shows him the what Earth looks like now and blah blah. And there's a moment where the camera comes down and he's sitting in the kind of the wasteland, and the line of dialogue he has is "Welcome to the desert of the real." And I'm like, wait, what?
I don't mind.
That line was terrible. That line was terrible.
It was cheese core, but I don't mind.
It was
so like otherworldly, you know. I heard him describe his character as both like a melding of Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. I'm like, I get it. That's his motivation, and I like it. I see it. He's kind of terrifying, but also like you're comforted by his presence.
Yeah, the film, like every time I watch it now, I'm impressed with just how tight the script is and how tight the pacing is in the film, and how it conveys so much information and it gets across so many big ideas, and it's so layered in its themes, and it's so layered in its messaging. And it was that before they even added on the extra trans layer that the directors pointed out, and it's made me kind of reevaluate an extra layer on top of everything. But so
yeah, I watched an interview with Lily Wachowski, and she was like answering questions for like the 20th anniversary of The Matrix.
Because we're all old, yes.
I mean, yeah, it's 22 years old now.
Yep.
So yeah, and it was. It really did like change my perception of the film a bit. Like I just didn't. Obviously, the themes in the movie seem so clear and relatable because we all live in this world where we're like programmed to do what's expected of us, that I didn't really even consider like the trans angle from it. But that also makes sense. Like people are born in a sex that they're told that this is what you are, and you can't get out of that.
Obviously, the core idea which we're talking about in the themes is that the idea of being a cog in the machine, and like realizing we can be, and it works in the context of the real world. The idea that we are oppressed by society, we're a part of a system. We're not told, we're trained not to be individuals. We're trained to be part of the system. Blah blah. You got all that stuff, right? And a lot of the messaging as that's happening also works for, I don't belong in the body that I am in. I feel this feels fake. There's something not right. Yada yada. And then on top of that layer, you also have the I can be special. I can be important. I am not just a faceless name in a list of things. I can be important. That's the whole idea of the one, right? That's why the chosen one in this particular movie, as cheesy as the concept can be, in this particular film, the whole point of it is that no, you can be special. You can be important, and you might be that important, and that's kind of part of it. The scene that stuck out to me the most, because I was thinking about the extra layer with the trans stuff throughout, but I didn't think it added a little layer to everything. But there was one scene in particular towards the end that I thought that it came sort of crashing in a way that, like, it was there before, and I thought, oh, that adds a nice layer to everything, but I wasn't necessarily thinking it overtakes what I think any of these scenes mean originally. But during the fight in the subway between Neo and Smith, Agent, is it Smith? Agent Smith, yeah. I doubt myself there, right? So they're fighting in the subway. As soon as Smith shows up, because he morphs from the homeless man, and he's there, and he looks at Neo and he says, Mr. Anderson, right? And I always remember the way he says that because his delivery is perfect. He sounds so good. He's like, this is the perfect vehicle for him hamming it up as a villain, right? Red Skull, Hugo Weaving, I hate. This Hugo Weaving, love. But what stuck out to me is that as soon as he said that, I went, oh wait, he just used his dead name. And I thought, that this clicks with the trans thing so much. And I'd forgotten that the scene ended with Neo saying, my name is Neo, and like sort of defying him and saying, no, that's not my name is Neo. And I'm like, shit, this scene especially fits so well with what they were saying in that interview. That was the one that really stuck out to me, was that name scene.
Yeah, I mean, before watching it with this lens now, I always thought that, well, he sort of represents, like, we get the scene in the beginning of the film where Neo sees his boss, and his boss calls him Mr. Anderson and tells him why he's not being a part of the team, and how he doesn't like authority and stuff like that. And he calls him Mr. Anderson all the time during that scene. So it was sort of like, yeah, this is kind of like the bigger macro of that smaller version of of what's actually happening. So he also represents like who's really in charge. And break through that.
And it absolutely still does mean that. That's the beauty of this, is that it still means those things too. It means both.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but because that connection was so strong, like I didn't even think about watching it or making a connection to what seems so obvious now. With the trans storyline.
Yeah, it's super impressive because it works really well in that way too. Like the idea that he represents oppression, and the Neo's trying to break out, and he's just saying, no, I'm not using the name you gave me. This is the name that I chose for myself, kind of thing. But this one, I feel like a lot of the other scenes in the film, like I still kind of came out thinking, Oh, the themes that I thought that were prominent before are still the most prominent ones. But this is the one scene where I kind of went, no, this feels like the trans sort of layer of analogy feels at the top. If I couldn't not think about it during that scene, and it made it just that a little bit more powerful. And it's already a good scene for numerous reasons. Let's stick with themes. Let's stick with the humanity and oppression and those things, because there's a lot of wonderful things that the movie does early on to kind of. There's some foreshadowing, like I things like the guy who shows up at Neo's door saying you need to unplug, man, and stuff. And that's literally what happens later as he unplugs. It's you have.
I mean, Cypher's like the big one, right? Like the big analogy of the people who don't want to leave the Matrix.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
like most people would probably take the blue pill.
Yeah, I mean, even before we get to this, I mean, obviously it's teased before then, but like even before we get to his proper heel turn, as it were, you have when Neo's explaining, or sorry, when Morpheus, is explaining things to Neo, and he's going through the crowd and he's saying, hey, most people are, they're not ready to be woken up, blah 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 blah. They are comforted by the system they're in, and that that really rings true. The idea that there's so many people who will argue for the status quo, and part of it is almost just the convenience of no, change means effort. Change means we have to accept differences, and that's not that doesn't work for me, brother. To borrow a wrestling phrase.
What's so interesting is that in the trivia I read, I don't know when this question was asked, but both Lily and Lana were asked if they would take the red or the blue pill, and they both answered blue pill, which is so interesting because their life story is breaking out of the mold, breaking out of the Matrix.
That's kind of funny. I guess that boils back to this is a movie and it's an analogy. It's not. It's not real. Ultimately, when you this is the
it's
thing.
Hard to break the status quo, though, right? Like it's better the devil you know sometimes.
Well, no, I think this extends beyond that, though. I think this comes back to the complaint that always comes up with superheroes, is that this is not realistic, and I'm like, I don't care if it's realistic. That it's a movie. No one cares. There's a great quote from Grant Morrison about kids, right? So a child, when they watch a movie that has like a singing crab, they know that real crabs don't sing, and they don't care. They don't ask questions about it. They just know it's not real. But if you give an adult something like a work of fiction, all of a sudden they start questioning everything, and like, why is this different from real life? And I think this kind of plays into this in a little way, because I think the point of their answer is more that, well, if the world's actually that shit, why bother fighting it? We'll just stay in the simulation. But this is a story that has to have heroes. It has to have,
and sure, but if you watch stories that we're not allowed to ask questions for, then we end up with like a billion Michael Bays out there for directing and writing, and not the Wachowskis.
Oh, but that's not the point I'm making, though. That's taking the one statement and applying it to everything without context. That's not the same thing. Every story is different. Every story has something to say, but as long as it satisfies the purpose of what it's trying to say, it doesn't matter if. Maybe you could look at it this way: that both the Wachowskis are saying, no, because we're not heroes. We made a character who is heroic enough to do this. We wish we were that heroic, but we're not. But that's kind of the point. In a real world scenario, though, they're heroic enough to make a movie that's posing these questions. They're heroic enough to talk about this. I guess what I'm saying is, don't be hard on the Wachowskis for saying they take the blue pill.
I admire their honesty. Honestly, yeah.
I don't know what I'd take. I hate questions like that. I hate being asked questions. Would you do this in a movie? I don't care. I'm not in the movie. I'm not the character. That's not the important thing.
Things that I feel like I have taken the red pill, which is the reason why I don't eat animal products anymore. I've seen some pretty terrible things, and now I can't unsee it. I can't unknow the truth about it, and so I don't partake in it.
But people sometimes will ask questions like, what would you do in this movie, or what would you? And I kind of hate those questions, because I'm like, I don't see myself in the movie. I don't see myself as a character in these things. It doesn't work that way.
Oh, come on! It's kind of fun to do what if scenarios in your mind, and to really like analyze, like, maybe there's something about me that I should change if I don't like my answer.
I guess I don't know. I'm saying it's okay to say that I know I'm not John McClane. I don't have to be John McClane. I guess I'll be a good person in the real world without being an action hero who can jump away from explosions and save hostages.
But you like answering questions like who would win Batman versus Superman?
No, I hate those questions.
What?
I hate those questions. It's so immature and juvenile and nerdy, and it doesn't matter.
They're just like, obviously the Batman would win, so I guess you need to
All right.
think about it.
Well, I can almost hear Matt putting out the hit on Tara from a distance. Silly question. If I believe I never watched it, but I think there's a good rant from Stan Lee talking about how much he hates those questions about who would win someone versus someone. But we're veering off topic. back to the Matrix. I don't know how it was your fault, but somehow that was your fault.
I don't know. I tried to talk about something else and you went back to it, so it's your fault.
Don't play my dirty tricks back on me.
I brought up the red pill thing and you went right back to the hypothetical questions. You weren't done ranting.
Oh, I hadn't finished my point yet.
Well, I thought you were done.
I'm done now. We can proceed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, no, it's like there's a lot of visual cues that are really nice. You know, when Neo's at his office job, he's literally in a grid of squares. It's very like how a computer would design a layout. Simple little things like that. Obviously it's very 90s because you have like the it's a very 90s looking website that he's on, and it's like, oh, this takes me kind of oddly back to when I first got a computer, and I didn't even have one in the 90s. I didn't get one until like 2001, but they hadn't changed that much by 2001, I guess.
No, it's got a real interesting look to it also, with the, like, every time you're in the Matrix there's like a green David Fincher filter over top of it. And then every time you're outside of the Matrix, there's there's a lot of blue, which is interesting because blue light isn't actually very natural, but it is in the Matrix.
Yeah. Well, the harsh green isn't natural either. Interestingly, on that subject though, is that it's a lot greener than it used to be. They rechanged how colored the green it was after the sequels came out because they wanted to match the sequels. The original version of the Matrix was actually a little bit more blue back when it first came out. But all the Blu-rays and current digital versions are all the new color coding. So, well,
I appreciate the color coding. Like, obviously it's not necessary, but I think it does add to it. Plus, every time we enter the Matrix, we go through a computer screen which always uses green digital lettering.
Oh, for sure. Don't mistake what I'm saying though. It wasn't that there wasn't coding before. It was just slightly different. There was still a difference between the real world and the Matrix.
Yeah.
It was just more of a bluer world than it was a green world, but it was different from the real world. There was still a distinct visualness to it.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I haven't seen, because I haven't, I got rid of the DVD a long time ago because I'm not watching stuff in standard definition. What am I, some sort of chump? So I don't remember. It's been a long time, but I used to have the old Snapper Warner Brothers Blu-ray with the clip at the side and it opened up. I hated those things.
Oh yeah, to prevent theft.
They were awful, awful. So, but yes, you have. Oh, sorry. Let's just let's just go through it because I don't know where to start. There's so many things. We'll just see where it takes us as we start going through it. Because you have your introduction with Trinity, where it teases who they're looking for, and it gives you a sense of how dangerous the agents are. It gives you a sense of what the fighting style would be. There's there's the one moment where she sort of jumps up and the camera spins, but there's not a lot of that after that for a long time. Like, it's just a little tease, and then we come back much later to that stuff.
Did you ever watch like the behind the scenes and how they created that?
I did, yes.
Which is a ring of cameras all around.
You'll notice that the era in which I saw a lot of extras is the era in which I was young, and was when I got a DVD, I watched everything that was on the damn thing. So I watched The Matrix Revisited.
Hey, and Keanu did like all of her own stunts. Like she really trained hard for the film.
Yeah.
Stuff like even the things that look like CGI almost, like it's her like superimposed into it, and yeah, good for her. She's awesome.
Yeah, I mean the casting. I mean, yeah, we're spinning out. We barely made it to the first scene. We'll spin out into the cast. But yeah, Carrie-Anne Moss is really. Yeah. Well, Carrie-Anne Moss is good. Obviously, Keanu. It was kind of funny because he was known for Bill and Ted. He had a decent success with Speed, of course, which we talked about on Patreon. At Point Break, yes, which was a little bit earlier than that. But it'd been a little while. He'd went a few years in the 90s without like a huge starring thing. And then The Matrix instantly became the thing he was going to be known for forever. Like, I mean, sure, don't get me wrong. He has John Wick now, and he has those things about earlier. But I think when the dust has settled, I mean, John Wick's maybe more prominent now because it's still going on, and there's still, there's more coming out and stuff. And I don't know, I think it'll be remembered. Definitely John Wick will be his late career kind of like resurgence, like badass role. But I think the Matrix, I think, is going to, like, him as Neo is going to be the main one. Like, that's the one in the middle of his career that really, like, oh no, he's definitely always going to be a star. People, no matter where his career goes after this, everyone's going to always remember Keanu Reeves because he was Neo in the Matrix.
Right. Plus, I mean, you don't get Keanu as John Wick without him being Neo in the Matrix, true. Right?
That's true. People might not have had the idea of putting him in a movie like that had it not been for the Matrix.
He did a couple of action movies beforehand, but this was some pretty heavy like stunt work, and he had to really learn how to do combat. It's actually kind of interesting that Laurence Fishburne really didn't have much of a career. I mean, he's had a career, but like he never became a star. He
was happy being a character actor for the most part, it seems. I mean, I assume he's happy. I mean, maybe he hates his career. I don't know.
I didn't listen to a podcast with Tarantino on it, and he was supposed to be Jules. Like that was the first person he went to for the role, and he turned it down. And he turned it down because like his agent said, "Don't do it."
And I want to point out,
you're a bad guy if you do it. And then he turned it down, and then there's an up and comer named Samuel L. Jackson that they gave it to him.
The point I would make on that is that look at the career Samuel L. Jackson's had since Pulp Fiction. Look at the 30 years that man has had since Pulp Fiction. It is maybe like.
You think Laurence Fishburne doesn't look at Samuel L. Jackson and said that could have been me?
Seriously, go to my Letterboxd page, go to my all-time stats. Who's my most seen actor? Who's the actor I've seen the most films? It is one Samuel L. Jackson.
Right. Kind of makes you feel bad for Fish.
For Fish. You just call him Fish now. Is that used to the kids call him?
That's his code name. Everyone knows. Everyone calls him Fish.
Did you know that he used to be credited as Larry Fishburne?
No.
Because if you watch A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors, he's in that and he's credited as Larry Fishburne.
Yeah, okay. So I think maybe he was in Pee-wee Herman also.
I know, I've seen Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Well, Pee-wee Herman Pee-wee's Playhouse was a TV show also, with Laurence Fishburne was Cowboy Curtis in it.
I was in a TV show. I'm not saying any of this. I don't know.
Yeah, it was one of those really trippy kids shows that I don't know. It seemed like it should be like wrong or dirty or something, but it wasn't. It was genuinely like just kind of nice.
Yeah, no, I mean, Laurence Fishburne gives this kind of, I'd call it like gravitas, but with like this sense of like almost naive hope. Because I think one of the things that runs throughout the film is the idea that he might be delusional, that he thinks Neo's the one. Even the idea that he is the one, like we never really get to see where he got the idea that Neo himself is the one. We never get this is what told him that Neo's the one in the first place. We just come into it with him already thinking Neo might be the one, and then he's just more convinced as the movie goes on. So it does come off as a little bit, he might just be crazy. Like, he might not know what he's doing.
Well, he's still confident, and like, just if Neo ends up not being the one, like it would just shatter him, because he's so invested in it.
Yeah. Well, to go back to the themes, I think part of that for me is the idea that if you go back to the idea of like someone having to like sort of find themselves and sort of not be just part of the machine and then sort of become who they're supposed to be, whether you take that as the trans kind of style of story, or if you go down the traditional thing that most people sort of looked at before, is the, just becoming important, being your own self and not part of, don't be RoboCop, don't just be the tool for the government, don't be that, right? A lot of science fiction tackles that type of topic, right? Cyberpunk especially does it all the time. Dystopian stuff does it all the time. And if you look at that, I think the idea of, and to an extent Trinity as well, especially with her, the ending stuff with her with the love and all that, but I think the idea of like having someone to like believe in you and support you, and no matter what, believe that you can be the best version of yourself, is kind of the point of Morpheus. So, and it's because you were saying earlier about how the first movie would stand on its own, and I think it's kind of true. I think you, in a way, from memory, the sequels to me feel kind of like fan fiction, and I know obviously it's the same creators, it's them doing their thing, but they feel like fan fiction in a sense because the first film has a clear thing that it's trying to say, and the ending of the film, if you're reading it and you're thinking about it, says that, and it's done. And obviously, from a plot perspective, there's tons of things you can do now because Neo's Superman and he can save Zion and we can see the war and all that. And that's what's in the sequels, but it feels kind of fanfiction-y because the core message, and I'm hoping that when I watch the sequels again, I'll be able to see something in there that feels like an actual statement being made, as opposed to,
That's the thing that is lost when you add a sequel to it, because if Neo represents like the hero, the chosen one, then he is special. But if he just represents like what we all have inside of us that could come out if we have this untapped potential, that we're just being oppressed by something else, then that's a much stronger message. And other stories where you're like, oh, you're the chosen one, can be a little bit hokey, but this one doesn't really come off that way because it's used as a metaphor. But because we get the sequels where he actually does do all this great stuff, and you're like, it feels less like it's a metaphor now and more like, no, he is the only person in this world that's special.
Because I think before the sequels came out, to me the ending was like, oh, that's it, the story's over, he saved him because he can't do anything, and that's it. I don't need to see it. Like, I didn't need to see the next parts because they told me repeatedly. You want
to see the sweaty rave that's going on?
Oh my god, I'm not looking forward to that. But the ending of the film like basically said to me no, because all throughout the whole thing they're saying the one can fix all this, the one can save us all, the one can do this and that. So at the end, when he is the one, he flies up, to the camera in the sky. I thought, all right, story's over. Because like they presented it and he seems like he can do it now. So the idea that there's still, and that was one of the problems of the sequel as well, and I promise we haven't talked much of the sequels, but just from memory, like,
you're right.
How do you present him with a threat when he becomes this powerful? And that's where we get to, quite frankly, that awful fight with tons of Agent Smiths where they all look like PS2 characters. And, but I mean, again, memory does whatever. So, anyway, what were we talking about? Yeah, Keanu Reeves and I was talking about Morpheus and how his support of Neo and belief in Neo is important to his character arc, and the idea that in the real world, having a friend or a loved one who believes in you and supports you no matter what, even if it is just almost made up, like it doesn't. It's not that you've proven to them in some way that you are special, but they believe in you're special, and that almost gives you the ability to believe it yourself, and therefore, so the idea that if you do break the shackles of society, if you don't be trapped by society's ideas, and maybe that is something as simple as, oh, I'm, in your case, being vegan and saying I'm not going to just like be a part of that system, or in other cases, I don't know, maybe protesting against certain things you disagree with that are going on in the government or whatever it may be. But doing so feels freeing, it feels liberating, and you feel like you can stop bullish. You feel like you can jump rooftop to rooftop. You feel like you can do these things. That's what the metaphor is. And this is the thing, as I was watching it again, like once Neo's introduced, almost every scene I could see the messaging and how it was being presented to me. And this is one of these things where the more I see this film, the better it gets, because every time I watch it, I'm paying attention to all the subtext, I'm watching all the layers, I'm seeing how are they presenting ideas to me. It's through the dialogue, through little character interactions, which is why when Morpheus has a terrible line of dialogue, like "Welcome to the island of the real," I'm like, oh, that's out of a stupid movie with exposition. Stop it. Get back to the good stuff, Matrix. Thank you. And I'm making fun of that line. It's like 3 seconds, whatever. But
it doesn't bother me.
I mean, it's not quite as bad as "It's a Hole in the World," which Keanu uttered in Speed, but
again, it didn't bother me. You're so picky.
I'm not very picky. It's just the line bothers me. All right, it's just stuck out to me. It's like, all right. So Trinity, we're back to the start of the movie. Trinity runs from the agent, and it teaches us how dangerous the agents are. It shows that she can jump from building to building. The agent does the same, and
all the police officers don't know what's going on. Yeah,
I love the tense moment where she sort of dives through the window, but when she gets to the bottom of the stairs, like she doesn't know if he's going to come right in after her, and she's like sort of like frozen in fear, and she sort of has to like pep talk herself into like, get up, Trinity. So, and I mean, hell, even that moment. I mean, this is maybe a bit of a stretch, but even that moment is, in essence, is like someone having to like convince themselves to they can do something because she's scared and she's talking herself into like just if nothing else, try to let the adrenaline get her through it because she's shitting herself, you know?
Right. When the oppressors show up again in the form of the agents, like it causes doubt, and which is how they defeat people, because you see your oppressor again and it just sort of revert back into who you were. So the agents showing up, like they have this reputation where they are unbeatable. And so she now has doubt.
And no one's ever beat them. Morpheus seems to be the best of them until Neo, which is why they're all excited later when they're like, hey, Morpheus and Neo are fighting in the simulator. This I'll go watch this. This gets to be good.
We're hopping over tables to get to see it.
But and that's kind of the thing where, okay, Morpheus can't even do it, and we're told that he, up until now at least, has been the best and the strongest. So it paints this villain that does keep pushing down. I guess the other idea there is that you have to keep fighting, and then eventually someone breaks through and changes something. And that kind of extends to society. The idea that, you know, change doesn't just happen because one person tries to initiate it or a group of people. Like it takes time. People have to keep pushing, and then eventually the right thing will break through. It shouldn't take that long in most cases. It should be something that people just respectfully understand and go, oh yeah, we should stop doing X thing. Oh, but we're not because we like the status quo. Yada yada yada. So wonderful stuff. And we get a tease of the phone thing, which is how they escape the Matrix. They come out through but it has to be a landline. It can't be a cell phone. The cell phones get used for
it has to be a specific one. I'm not quite sure the rules, but like they're always really far away.
I don't think it's a specific one per se. I think it's just the closest one that they can actually access, because I don't think, even though they do say that if they're encountered by like for lack of a better word, the NPCs, and the NPCs are real people, they're all people who are still asleep in the farms, right? But I don't think they go out of their way to like go murdering them if they don't have to. So I think they don't want to like have to break into like houses or so. And maybe it does have to be specific ones, but I kind of took it as that's the nearest one that's private, because I think if anyone witnesses it, the agents see it. Because that's something that's made clear as the movie goes on, is that whenever someone witnesses them do something, you know, I guess Matrixy, I suppose, the agents can sense it. Yeah. So.
Right, and I don't know. Do we see in this opening scene that the agents can take over any person?
I don't think. Maybe we can. I think it's hinted at with the driver of the truck. I don't think we see it
but we don't
properly.
Actually see it.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Because it's the same with the phone thing. I mean, even you don't actually see what it looks like when they go through the phone until Morpheus, like very near the end, and it looks cool. Like when you see it, and it's like it was like, and then the phone just like falls.
Right.
It's good.
It was cool. I agree, because you know the whole movie we've been seeing people disappear, but it's just like the camera's not on them when it happens, or it happens as something else is happening, so you don't get to see it. But when you do get to see it, it's not like a, oh, that's disappointing. No, it's all right. It's cool.
Yeah, and then we're introduced to Neo, who is a hacker. He wakes up by his computer. He's told on his computer by Morpheus to follow the White Rabbit. You know, wake up, Neo, all that stuff. And even that line, wake up, Neo, like that's got subtext. Like he's saying, wake up, Neo. Like, wake up. See around you. Not just literally wake up from sleep, but wake up, and you know. So beautiful stuff. So he goes to the club even though he doesn't want to, just because the girl's got the white rabbit. So there's a lot of Alice in Wonderland referencing for like
Yeah,
the
he
first
also
third.
seems to have this job where this side gig where he gives people mini disc for lots of money and then they go to party with it. Is it like some sort of like digital drug? I don't understand what it is.
What? Okay, I'm going to try
Guy
not.
gives him $2,000.
I'm not going to try and make fun of you here, right? But I thought it was pretty clear that he's selling them like software or something to hack things with. It's illegal programs, not music. They're not using the disc at the club. The club.
No, he's not the DJ. No, I'm just kidding. Of course it's not that. No, I was confused by what it was that he was selling because it looks like they've come to his place to party because he's got the good stuff and they give him $2,000 for it. Like maybe that means it's his. Maybe it's something very real world. Like this will get you into a bank account where you can party all night because you have money now. But he paid him $2,000, so I don't know what that could be. Or maybe because this is the Matrix and not reality, like something about the computer coding can affect people like through VR or I don't know. Like I don't know what it is. It doesn't make sense to me.
I think you're overthinking this a little bit, maybe. I mean, maybe there's like an analogy there about how, yeah, since they're in the Matrix, digital stuff can be like drugs. I mean, I get why you're saying it feels like a drug deal because of the way he comes up to the door and gives them the money, but that's a lot of money, right? And I feel like this is more about because the way he says if you get caught using that, like to me, it sounds like he's giving him a program that's going to let him, like, yeah, maybe hack bank accounts or maybe spying people. It sounds like dark web stuff. It sounds because.
Okay.
We see he's a hacker, so I think it's a hacking thing. I think it's just what he trades in is like he makes dodgy programs or exploits or Trojans or viruses or whatever.
I like the idea that he just paid for a $2,000 DJ disc to play at the party.
Because you say mini disc, but it was actually like a zip drive. I think it was like what did you call them? Like a zip disc. They look kind of like mini disc, but they're a little bit bigger.
Like a UHD.
A UHD?
Whatever the little disc that came in the PSPs.
Oh, that's a UMD.
UMD, yeah.
Oh, that is old school.
I don't know what UHD is. I might have just was thinking of UHF and UMD and just
well,
combined them.
UHD is a thing. UHD is pointless, but it's the alternate name for 4K. It's Ultra HD.
Oh.
But it's stupid. Like they should never use it. 4K sounds fine on its own. Don't confuse matters with Ultra HD. Like, it's stupid. Like, what are you going to call when we get to 8K? Super Ultra HD? Like,
I like it.
all the Ds. The Super Ds, the Ultra Ds, the HDs, all the D. All right. So, Great Club, Trinity comes to speak to him. There's a line here that kind of stuck out to me a little bit as well, where she introduces herself and he's like, wait, Trinity, the hacker that hacked the IRS or something like that, or no, it wasn't the IRS, it was the Department of Defense maybe, but whatever, and he's like, damn, I thought you were a man, and she's like, most guys do, so I think that stuck out a little bit more to me, but yeah, obviously this is we see him at work. He's being screwed up, and it is this grey, depressing, grid-like layout of the office. I always kind of chuckle a little bit that his computer screen is not even on in the scene when he gets like the FedEx like package, just because.
Yeah, I didn't notice.
Because he's not doing anything. Like I suppose the implication is he just sat down, so he's not really started anything yet.
Well,
but
he also just came from his boss's office where he was telling him, like, Mr. Anderson, you have a problem with authority, and we get the window cleaners on the outside.
I think it's very intentional that his boss looks a lot like Hugo Weaving. It's not him, but it's intentionally very similar.
Yeah,
I think that's right.
And then he calls Mr. Anderson.
And he calls him Mr. Anderson, of course. And Morpheus, tells him to like run and hide and get away from the agents on the phone, and it's all this trust thing. But when he's told to go around the edge of the building, he can't. He gets too scared. And again, for the metaphor, like he comes, he's told that he can be something more and he can do something, but he's like, no, I can't do this, and he backs away.
Hard. Yeah. Although it is like an impossible angle for him. You know that thing where like, would you rather, or like put yourself in the situation in the movie, like, could you do it? I couldn't do it. I couldn't do this. I do think about like, well, how would he make it? Like, could he like squat down and sort of like hug the rail and make it around? It seems like an impossible task.
I mean, could I do it? No, I know I couldn't do this. Again, it's a movie character. It's fine.
It's nothing to grab onto. It's like a smooth block that's in the way. You can't get around that easily or at all. I
So he's taken in by the agents, and
It turns into a horror movie.
Hugo Weaving sits down with him and gives him the whole, like, you lead two lives, Mr. Anderson. You have this computer hacker life, go by the name of Neo, but you're also Mr. Anderson, and you help your landlady and stuff. But Neo tries to give him a bit of attitude when he gives him the finger and says, "I'll have my phone call." And yes, his mouth melds shut as they put some sort of surveillance drone thing into his
Belly button.
belly button. Yes,
It's horrific.
it's pretty nasty. It's pretty nasty.
Definitely the scene that like stuck out to me when I was watching it the first time. Like, that's a scene that I had never seen anything like that before, and that like really, I left the theater going. Obviously special effects are awesome, but like, I'm going to think about that scene in my nightmares.
No, it's a pretty good scene. I think the next part where he wakes up and they caught the Matrix gang. There's not a name for the team, but Morpheus and Trinity and Switch, and they get in
Morpheus Roughnecks.
Yes, and they take him. There's some gorgeous shots here actually of like him under the tunnel in the rain, like waiting for the car. Like it is a very pretty couple of shots there. He's reluctant, but they use this big device to like suck out the bug and get rid of it.
It's like a shrimp. it looks like a shrimp, or like a shrimp and a scorpion combined.
It's pretty nasty.
But we also get to see like what like a machine, something that looks like it should be an inanimate object, come to life, like transform, and into something that is terrible and horrifying.
And it's worth mentioning that other than that, there's no technology in this world that's actually of the future. This is just straight up 1999, and that point's made clear a few times that there's nothing that we didn't have. Yeah, sorry.
Like the flip phones.
Oh yeah.
I wanted one of those so bad. The one with the sliding.
And
so cool.
I mean, obviously it's only 1999 in the Matrix because that's when the movie was coming out, so they just based it on the time they were in. But so that's all it is. But it does make me wonder. Technically, should in the new Matrix 4 that's coming out, should the Matrix itself still technically be 1999?
I don't know.
I think that's interesting. But again, time does still move forward, I suppose, because people are still growing old and living their lives out. So maybe it will still keep going in time.
Yeah, I don't know, but I suspect. Well, we get more lore in the sequels, obviously, but just taking it from the first movie on its own, it sounds like 1999 was the peak of human civilization. So it's been 1999 for a long time because the technology outside the Matrix has gone on for at least 100 years.
So you think they sort of do some sort of like every year they have like a sort of like soft reboot where they sort of like make everyone forget what year it is and they think it's back to the start of 1999 again?
You could.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Or just like it's like Fallout, where it's a future but it's also the 50s.
Yeah. Oh, to go back to the whole Keanu being in like a box, right? So Neo's in the box and in terms of the cubicle, which again is very grid-like, very prison cell-like. Again, when he's in the interrogation room, the first thing we see before we go in the room is the monitors, which are also in a grid, and it's just like lots of him in a box. So there's a lot of imagery of him being confined in something, which is very pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they take it to see Morpheus. This sort of grungy old building. There's like these two red leather chairs, and Morpheus waxes lyrically. And this is one of the things that really stuck out to me here is, so obviously this is the famous red pill, blue pill scene, right? But there's a lot of references here to Alice in Wonderland, and there's already been a couple because of the White Rabbit and whatever. But Morpheus like, hey, do you want to see how far the rabbit hole goes? You feel like Alice tumbling down the rabbit hole, blah blah. I do think it's very interesting, all this referencing, when he does take the right pill and he does go into the room to like go through their process. I found it a wonderful bit of foreshadowing, all of the references, because what he touches that then kind of consumes him as a mirror, and what else could you call a mirror? You could call it the looking glass, and
he goes through the looking glass.
He goes through the looking glass. I thought that was it's maybe a bit on the nose, a bit more on the nose than some of the other stuff we're talking about, but it works.
He's also in the Matrix, and perhaps there's he's being influenced by Morpheus to think about like all the Alice in Wonderland stuff anyway, because now that he's taken the red pill, like things are changing around him. His dream is almost come to life, and maybe it's a bit more like malleable, like people who have those waking dreams can sort of like, I don't know, manipulate things in their dream. Maybe he's just being influenced by all the rabbit talk and stuff, all the Alice talk.
I mean, maybe. I never actually even took it as an influence thing. Maybe it is. Maybe it is him, his mind that's doing this to the mirror. Or is this just what happens when they're doing this process? This is just the natural kind of thing. Presumably, though, all of this is brought on by the pill.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else sees Neo like his hand covered in mirror and like starting to spread up his arm and stuff. I think that's just what Neo sees.
Okay. So, and we get the visuals of the farm when he wakes up, and we get him in the pod and the goo and the machines and all the lightning going off between the various like towers that are all housing just rows and rows of people. And it's very unsettling. It's unsettling to watch someone pull these big like tubes and cords out of themselves.
Turns out the machines are all very big fans of H.R. Giger. It looks very Giger, right?
I honestly, I was getting more Borg vibes than I was Giger. There's a lot of pipes and tubes and like black like parts and stuff to the bodies. Well, at least the drone that comes up to see him up close felt that way to me. Obviously, the Sentinels we see later, which are kind of the hunting like drones, they're a bit more. I mean, they straight up look like squids or jellyfish or something like that. They've got like a very aquatic look to them.
Right. Yeah.
But he, it's this very like awakening. That this is it's unpleasant. It's uncomfortable. I do like that they address very quickly when they come and get him, because they basically the machines just shove him out of a chute into like a pool of like where they probably expect him to just die because he's useless now. He's woke up. But they come and get him
because he's never used his limbs before.
That's what I was about to say, is that I like that they addressed that his muscles, because I was thinking about it during the scene. I was like, he's literally never moved around. So it's not that he doesn't know how to swim. Maybe in the Matrix he did know how to swim, but his limbs shouldn't work because he's never. And obviously, I think it's an interesting question to ask, like a real doctor, like a real physical therapist, is that if you literally never use your muscles from birth until if
you grew up in a bathtub,
if you grew up to like say, what is he here, like 35 or something, like could you theoretically could you train them to work, or are they just done because you've just never used them? Like if you make it to that age without ever using your muscles, and obviously I accept that in the movie they know how to rebuild them, because that's what they say, they're rebuilding your muscles because you never used them.
It takes a long time.
Yeah, there's a montage, that's what you do in movies. The montage to fix everything. But no, I like that they address it though. But it did make me wonder.
Yeah, I thought about that more actually when he talks about like, why do my eyes hurt? And Morpheus says, because you've never used them before.
I like that one.
Which also has other layers on top of that, right? Like you're finally seeing things.
Yeah, you're finally seeing things clearly. Yeah,
been enlightened and awakened and all that. But also, literally, he's never used his eyes before because he's been stuck in a pod since baby Neo, and so that's when the question comes up in my mind, like, would his eyes work then? Like, if he's never used them during the development? But whatever, it's a movie.
Yeah. I mean, I'll accept that part. That's fine. I'll accept that they will. But again, I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't. I think I buy your eyes would work after 35 years, and I'm just ballparking that. I don't know if that's the exact age here, but I'm just going to say it as. I buy your eyes would work more than your muscles would.
Mm.
I don't know why, but my instinct just says the eyes would adjust better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you don't have to, you don't move your eyes, so it's more just a sensitivity thing that maybe you could build up. Maybe you'd have to do it very carefully, but just like having a little bit of light and then just sort of slowly sort of introduce them. I don't know.
I mean, luckily he's born into darkness.
That's true. That's true.
And I like this whole, like, he actually does die. Like, he goes into cardiac arrest and stuff. And the reason they have to find him so quickly is because he is, like, he's about to get flushed, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So he sort of, like, has a heart attack in the Matrix and then is reborn into the real life. And then he gets reborn, like, 2 more times in the film. But, like, this is the first one.
Yeah, this is probably the most important one in a lot of ways.
So the last one.
Because it's literal. Yeah. So, are you guys interested in the ship, the Nebuchadnezzar, and the crew? Some of whom, of course, we've seen at this point. The villainous Cypher, played by Joey Pants, who I like a lot in various things. And of course, we get the brothers who are natural. They do not have, and that's an interesting little bit of the mythology, I think, is that anyone who's been born in the one city that's left, Zion, which we find out is near the core of the earth because it's still warm there, they don't have the inputs to go into the Matrix. They can't do that. So that's why Tank's job is he's the one at the computer who's doing everything, because he can't go into the Matrix. He just doesn't have the in a weird way, the only reason why they can even go in is because they were designed to in the first place by the machines. So
they have plugs.
They have the plugs for it, yes. So I think that's a wonderful little detail there. And so we get the explanations of that humans are batteries, that some of the stuff I love about the mythology is that we don't know who struck first, us or them, but we do know it was us that torched the sky. And the sky is just this awful looking thing. It's like, oh, because they need sunlight because they're all solar powered. So that was how we tried to beat them, is to take away the sun.
But then it turned against us. Obviously, like, we destroyed our planet, but also now they can use us as batteries.
Yeah.
I wonder if they have like fields of like kitty cats and other things that they can use.
What do you think?
I bet they're good for batteries.
Are all the pets in the Matrix also all real in the world in tubs?
maybe not. Maybe it's just all humans and that's it. But I like the idea of like the like water buffaloes or like the D batteries. They're just bigger.
Yeah, Morpheus literally holds up a Duracell. He hides the logo, but you know it's a Duracell.
Yeah. At one point, I think it's Switch who calls the Neo Copper Top. Also, like the top of a Duracell battery.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a couple of jokes, which are all right. And of course, this section has a lot of fun with the visuals of like switching between the White Room to the apocalyptic look of the city to the back to the White Room, and there's other things in there. And there's some separate stuff with Neo being kind of. That's part of the movie. Like the order of the conversations kind of mixes up in my head a little bit. Like, obviously he's told he's like Morpheus believes he's the one. I think that's when Morpheus is sitting next to him when he's lying in the bed. But then there's another scene with someone else, and then eventually you get to the training where it's like, okay, it's explained the rules of the Matrix, which is first of all, and that's technically how this rule comes last. But first of all, if you die in the Matrix, you die in the real world, so there's stakes, and that's important. I think from a storytelling perspective, if you didn't die in the real world, if you died in the Matrix, it would be hard to give a shit about anything that was happening after that point in the Matrix.
Right. You'd basically be a god because you'd be invincible.
Yeah. At which point, why do you need to like have the one? Like, you can all just be the ones. So there's that. But it establishes, things like, oh, we can load training into your brain. We can just download into your brain how to do a martial art or fly a helicopter, as used later on, or other key skills. I assume they all get basic weapon skills, or hell, advanced weapon skills, given some of the shit we see the gun. And we see all this, and he's going strong. There's like kind of a disappointment at a certain point because they do the jump program where he tries to jump a building for the first time, and everyone's watching intently, and they all say no one lands their first jump. Everyone always falls. That's just normal.
Nobody makes the first jump.
But I do think it does a good job of like giving us a sense of disappointment in the room when he doesn't do it, because they're thinking that he's special. He might do it the first time because he's special, because he's the one.
Yeah. And Trinity also seems very invested in finding out if he's the one.
Yes. And that's the great irony of her character, is that she's trying to find out if he's the one, but as we find out later, she's been told that the person she falls in love with will be the one. So it's funny that she's trying to establish who's the one so she knows if she loves him. But then ultimately she realizes, wait, he has to be the one because I'm in love with him.
Right.
So there's a roundabout fun logic to like her, and it makes sense in the way that you get why she's unsure, and that's how she's trying. She's trying to make it definitive in her own mind by saying, "Oh, he's the one." I mean, I think I like him. He's kind of nice,
cute.
He's good on a bus.
Yeah. He doesn't really speak much, but
he says "boa" a lot. It's like, whoa. Yeah. And of course the big scene that everyone always brings up is the kung fu. It's in the dojo where he's learning the various martial arts, and as mentioned earlier, everyone's like, hey, he's fighting, because it's established that the Matrix itself, they don't get like a video feed for, but they do get used to being able to read the code, so they can just look at the Matrix code and they know what's happening, which sure, I'll buy it, but sure. But I think when it's their training simulator, because it is their program, they can just look at it. Yeah. So they're all watching this fight happen. And it's like, wait, okay, so he's going toe to toe. And it's kind of this thing where, he's getting his ass kicked a little bit. And I mean, everyone says, I know Kung Fu, but my favorite line of this scene is stop trying to hit me and hit me. Like, that's a great line. But of course, he eventually, after a lot of trial and error, lands a hit. I mean, he doesn't actually take the hit. He kind of just, he stops right
beforehand, yeah.
But it's kind of the moment where everyone's watching and going, oh shit, none of us can do that. Like, he just outfought Morpheus after some attempts. So it's kind of a big thing. And then, the lessons later are about how anyone can turn into an agent, so you have to take them as enemies. Which thematically is very important because it establishes that a lot of these people, like they're not ready to be woken up, and even though we want to wake everyone up, we can't. It's dangerous.
Right, and we do see them kill people in the Matrix, so they are killing people who don't realize that they are what they are. Presumably some of those people are innocent, good people, but I think also because the agents are men of uniform in a way, they're referred to as agents. There's some sort of like government oversight, like they're kind of men in black. But I think that's also why we sort of accept that anybody in a uniform could be potentially bad in the film. So maybe we don't feel as bad for the innocent lives that are being taken.
I mean, it's kind of a murky line, actually, in a weird way, because they're not NPCs, they are all connected to real people. I think, actually, anytime an agent takes over someone, they also die. So the agents obviously don't give a shit. They're happy to just, kill left and right. But it's kind of what I said earlier, where they only kill the ones that they have to actually go through. They never go out of their way to just, start murdering the people left and right. I think that's important, just from a heroic standpoint. But he does establish this. He tells Neo this, and then of course the real lesson here that anyone can be an agent is the woman in the red dress, who Mouse is very, very proud of.
His centerfold that he's brought to Matrix. Yeah,
Lady in red.
I mean, she's quite striking.
Yes, and he tries to pimp her. He's like, "Hey, if you want some one-on-one time and the code,
I got a program."
Yeah, I got a program. And maybe get slowly on the ship. I mean, why not? I don't know.
I mean, it's technology. It's going to be used for porn, right?
That's just the rule of nature. If the technology exists, there will be porn. That's just how it is. VHS one, because it's the one that had porn. It's that simple. The internet became the internet because it had porn. These are just the simple facts of life. All we can say about it. But anyway, so I mean, I think what's impressive is that this like 20-minute portion of the film that does all these various tests and trainings and things is that all of them is kind of an exposition dump. This is a lot of teaching us things, but it's to the movie's credit that the ideas that it's teaching us about are so interesting that it doesn't just feel like an exposition dump. It feels like things make a whole lot of sense as they're explaining it to us.
Yeah, plus, I mean, the choreography that they have for this film is just so exceptional that, like, yeah, okay, they're explaining things, but, like, it's so fun to watch. Like, who cares, right?
Do you mean the cinematography?
No, choreography, like all the fight scenes and stuff that we get during the expedition dumps.
Oh yeah, that's just for the kung fu scene. No, but I'm thinking like all the other stuff, like the jump and the walking through the street. There's a lot of style because, you know, for example, when they're walking through the street and they're wearing the red dresses, there everyone freezes. There's kind of like a surreal element to the shot, or you know, all the vertigo stuff of him like saying, "Okay, I can do this. I can jump. You know, I can make this jump. Why not?" I think it's to its credit that there's enough interesting ideas being weaved throughout this, and just little things like Cypher's dropping all these little like hints that he's kind of unhappy about, you know, what this world is. He has that scene with Neo where they're kind of like, he offers him a drink and he's like, "Hey, you know, I know what you're thinking. You know, why didn't I take the blue pill? You know, you can still be like doing all that stuff." And it's not long after this we get the scene of him at the dinner with you know, Agent Smith and
Eating a steak.
Eating a steak. Hey, it's Matrix. It's not real, technically. So.
Okay. I wasn't bringing that up.
I was about to say technically they're all vegan, but that's not true because there is one throwaway line that tells them that the fluids,
green.
the fluids that are all being fed while they're in the tanks are actually recycled dead people that have already moved on.
I just realized I kind of spoiled something. I don't know if you want to take that out or not.
What did you spoil?
I said they're being pumped full of Soylent Green.
But they say that in this film.
Yeah, but I'm spoiling Soylent Green.
Oh, okay. I thought you were trying to say you were spoiling it. Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I'll accept that Soylent Green's enough of a reference that everyone will probably get that I won't I won't be harsh on it. But if Tara just spoiled Soylent Green for you, then you may direct your angry messages in the comments below.
I mean, even people who don't know it probably know it. They probably know it, or they probably heard something about it.
Probably, yes. But wouldn't it be nice if they could watch a movie without the classic twist being spoiled?
I watched it that way.
Oh, good for you! So you just ruined it for everyone else then. That's what you did.
I mean, I realized I did it as soon as I did.
Yes.
You can still take it out. There's still time.
No. Now I want to leave this out.
Well, now the blood's on your hands.
I think the conversation here is far too entertaining now to even dare take this out. So, yes. So, and I think there's a mythology thing here that I really like with and obviously thematically this stuff ties in as well with Cypher wanting, you know, power. He doesn't care if it's not real technically, but, you know, give me a nice house, make me something important.
Like an actor.
Like an actor. That was a little meta joke.
Yeah.
But, you know, like that stuff's like, hey, I'm okay living the sly as long as I get to benefit from it. Which again, I think ties into the real world and what the movie's speaking about. In a lot of ways. So
the people who understand the system and understand how it works are the ones that get to be on top.
And I think a very important detail is that he wants his memory wiped. He doesn't want to remember the real world, and I think that's maybe taking it one step further and saying he wants to be ignorant. He wants to be willfully ignorant of anything that's going on.
Well, that's what he says when he's eating the steak, right? Like,
ignorance is bliss. Yeah, you're right. He actually says that line.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was making a great point, but he kind of did say it. So yeah. So all that stuff kind of comes in a clump, It's a very eventful, like 20-25 minutes of like all this stuff happening. We learn about Zion, the city which we mentioned earlier from Tank. His brother gets very few lines, which made it he almost screamed red shirt. Let's be honest, same with Mouse in a lot of ways. And is it APOC? Is like the other guy who's just there.
Yep.
He has almost nothing meaningful to do except for he has like one line when he hands Neo a gun later, and that's about it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And I think he also says,
Oh.
he says Trinity just before he dies. He's like, Trinity?
Do something.
Come on, Trinity, I'm about to die here. But the big thing is that Cypher's going to betray them and lead the agents to them, but Morpheus wants to take Neo to the Oracle. And the Oracle is something we can't even really talk about what she is until the future films, because we don't really know exactly or get a better context of what she actually is until the third one, I'd say. But
yeah. This one, she mostly just represents like that chapter of the hero's journey where he has to meet with somebody who's going to tell him like a prophecy and stuff like that.
Yeah, but in terms of the themes of the film, though, what does she represent?
I mean, why don't you just tell me?
Why we should think I've got an answer? Maybe I'm just asking a genuine question. Like, how do you
testing me and I don't like it?
I'm not testing you. I'm not testing you. I don't necessarily have a great answer for this one. I'm genuinely asking. What do you think she?
Okay, well, Morpheus has been telling Neo that he is the one, that he is special, and because the Oracle told him. So he needs to go to the Oracle now to be like, I don't really feel like I'm special, and I want you to reassure me on that. And like, because he's going to go to get the answer then, like, am I the one? Because she'll know, right? She'll know if I'm the one or not. And maybe I don't want to be the one. Maybe that's too much pressure. So when he gets there, then she relieves him of that heavy burden. Now he can just be free from the Matrix, but not be special.
Yes, but she repackages it into another choice, which is almost as grave, right. But in a weird way, it's ultimately him deciding the same thing. He just doesn't realize he's deciding the same thing. Right. Which is, either you or Morpheus are going to die, and you're going to have the choice as to which one. And he believes it so thoroughly that you're the one that he's willing to die for it, and that's something you're going to have to,
I guess since she is she's a seer, she is like she has the ability to.
We assume. It's actually impressive to me how little they explained what she is in this movie. Like, they just say they're going to see the Oracle, and other people say they've told her things. She's told them things, but other than that, they don't even say she's like. They just sort of say, I guess she knows things. That's all. That's basically the gist of what they say in this.
Right. Like, we don't know if she's like some sort of NPC or if she's just a human that knows the Matrix exists but still chooses to live in it or something.
Mm.
But I guess she also sort of represents the theme of fate, since she is able to have prophecies that, when Morpheus first sits down with Neo, he says, like, do you believe in fate? And Neo says, no, because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control. But then it comes around at the end where he, goes, she tells him exactly what he needs to hear, right? He doesn't, which is not the truth. And so it's not until he like makes the decision to be the one that because he's the one in control now, that he chooses to be the one, that the prophecy comes true. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. Like, she's giving him the illusion that he's got some control, and even makes it and puts it in black and white and says you're going to have this choice, which is him having control. Because we never mentioned that line where he said, he doesn't like the idea that he's not in control, which obviously ties into the idea of the Matrix in itself, because he never had control. He was just a cog in the machine, as it were. And here, he, is almost deceitful, because I think to an extent there is fate, but I don't think it's really fate in a weird way. I think fate's what they call it in this movie, but really it's more inevitability, which I think is a little bit different, in that in a society, say, ultimately certain groups are going to rebel because ultimately the position that they've been put in means that they're going to eventually rise up and do something. it's a matter of time until it happens. And obviously, when you get to the end of the sequel and it kind of does something with that in a way, we'll get into that. But there is something interesting about the idea of he wants control. It feels like he gains that control and realizes he can be important, but ultimately he's just fulfilling something that he was told was fate. So he's also kind of proving Morpheus and the Oracle's points at the same time. So there's it's still kind of an illusion in a weird way, which is funny because it's maybe the one thing that kind of implies that the story's not done. It's the only thing really that says to me there's still something for him to, like, break from in some way in the future. Yeah. It's very minor though in the scheme of things, because again, I don't think it needed sequels. I think you can never watch the sequels. You can watch this one movie and it's perfectly ended. Like, it's done. Yeah. Absolutely. So, but he goes to see the Oracle. It starts to tease. If I have a minor quibble, just a minor quibble, I do think the way it teases what Trinity's been told by the Oracle is a little bit just stilted, because it boils down to her almost telling him like 2 or 3 times, where he's like, "What did she tell you?" And she's like, "She told me," and then she just stares off into space, and then like they get interrupted, and then again when they're about to go back out of the Matrix later, she's like, "By the way, I've got something important to tell you," but then it kind of trails off, and then they just have to go into the Matrix. Like, it keeps doing it, and I'm like, okay, I get that you're teasing that whatever the Oracle told her is important and relevant, but it's just a little on the nose. It's a minor quibble. It's not a big deal. It's like a couple of quick lines, but they stuck out to me.
I mean, it's not really a surprise what her thing is, though. I mean, even when he goes to see the Oracle, she says, "I see why she likes you." It's like, oh, I wonder who that could be.
Oh, but the nitpick has nothing to do with what the information is. It's just about how they tease it.
Okay. Yeah, it's all right.
It's just the way they keep having her like find a way to not finish her sentence, I guess. Like that. But it's, I don't want to say it's contrived. It feels too harsh to say it's contrived. It's just a little bit clunky, I guess. But yeah, go see the Oracle. There is no spoon. All that idea.
Oh, you get the spoon boy.
You get the spoon boy. Is that what we're calling?
I think this is because there was I think his name was Uri Geller. There was a famous like magician who used to go on TV and claim that he could bend spoons with his mind, but it was a trick he used. Like, he warmed up the metal until like the spoon just bent on its own from the heat because it became malleable. But so I think that that's used on purpose because he was such like a sensation across, like, I don't know, the US at least. He would like do all the rounds of talk shows and stuff and do this amazing thing. Like, I could bend spoons with my mind. So I think that's why they did the spoon thing.
Yes, well, without that cultural knowledge, it still worked for me, luckily. But it still worked.
Uri Geller's a con man, and this is like a little Buddha child who's like
very different character. Very different.
Actually able to do with his mind because it's the world that's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's I think it's very intentional. The Oracle's very motherly. She's baking cookies. She's smiling about who you might have a crush on, and all the rest of it. And I think that's very intentional because it goes back into that whole support group thing I was saying here. Okay, so Morpheus and try to believe in him. That's a big part of him becoming who he is and really self-realizing. And I think having the motherly figure as well, it kind of ties into that sort of like just that tapestry of what that image is. As you want the good support group around you. But obviously, when they get back to the base, or not the base, but they go back to this building that they came from, Cypher's left a phone to lure in the agents. They've changed something in the Matrix. We get the glitch.
Deja vu.
Deja vu. And what have they changed? They've bricked up all the windows with a bit of code. They went do. All bricks. Mouse goes out. Guns blazing.
Yeah. Scarface style.
Scarface style. The others, they run around a bit. They hide in walls. Cypher, he conveniently falls, but then he's fine. Like, obviously we know it's because they've let him go because he's meant to go back.
Yeah, but he's the one who gave their position away because he started coughing. Also in the walls.
Oh, in the wall, yeah.
Which seemed unintentional, but also, I mean, he doesn't want to get shot by the police officers, so I guess he is trying to keep quiet. But it's Cypher that the one that gives him away.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, I mean, obviously it's never addressed in the movie because he just ends up getting killed. But I mean, do you believe that Smith and the AI would give him what he wants? Like, why wouldn't they just kill him when all of this is done?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess I never really doubted it, but especially on this rewatch, it really does seem like Smith, because he's sentient and he has agency, that he really does like get fueled by anger and rage and revenge and stuff like that. So it may be an ego thing where he's just like, I'm not going to let you do it. He doesn't want to be won over by, a human.
I don't know if it's about being won over. I think it's just like, why did he need to? They have absolutely no incentive or reason to actually give him what he wants. Like, if he's going to have his mind wiped anyway, they can just kill him and he'll never know. Like, it doesn't matter.
But maybe it is easy enough to just give him what he wants.
But I think that also ties into the idea of people who try to get rich or try to like get a rich quick or try to achieve the dream of having the big mansion and stuff, and it falls flat in their face because no one at the top actually wants to give them the thing or hand them out the thing.
Yeah, you can't rise above the class you were born in.
So I think thematically also kind of makes sense that maybe it was never really, it was just a carrot on a, it wasn't the stick, it was the carrot. That's just basically what I'm saying.
Sure.
I think Smith's an interesting conversation because I think he's an interesting counterpoint to Neo, because ultimately his motivation that is kind of like brought up as he's like talking to, because obviously they kidnap Morpheus. Morpheus doesn't want Neo to die because Neo is about to get grabbed. So Morpheus jumps out the wall and he tries to put up a fight with the agent, but even he can't fight an agent. So he gets taken in. And Hugo Weaving as Smith monologues a little bit here or there about what he's doing, because because they want to get the Zion mainframe codes from all the captains of all the ships have these mainframe codes, and if they can destroy the real city, it turns out his motivation is that if there's no real humans like taking people out of the Matrix, then there's no reason for some of the AI programs to be security inside the Matrix. He wants to be freed. Smith's goal is to get out of the Matrix. That's what his motivation is, and I think that's very interesting. That his goal is kind of similar to these humans and similar to Neo in that he thinks he's better than this. He doesn't like being in the Matrix and he wants to be out. And he's trying to like screw over the entirety of humanity to get what he wants, which I think, again, if you take him as being, middle management, he's doing things for the boss, he's just trying to screw up everyone that's done beneath him so he can rise to the top kind of thing. You can sort of like, put it into that kind of idea a little bit. But I think the idea that his goal is to get out of the Matrix, he hates it in here, is a fascinating like motivation for him. Yeah,
it's almost like he's punished for some reason. Like he's stuck in there. Like he has to live like a human. Like he has sensory abilities. Like he smells people.
But that's what's funny about it, is because presumably it's not a punishment, because at the start no one would have cared because they're all robots. They don't have feelings. And maybe that being in here long enough is he's kind of developed sentience. He's kind of developed this hatred for where he is, and he wants to be in a... So the irony of this is that our main villain is becoming a little human, and that's why he's such a dick. Because he's cold, and he's all these things that is robotic and all that.
But he's not a machine. Yeah.
But he's not totally a machine anymore. There's just enough. And it's the worst parts of humanity that are in him. It's the worst parts. But they are human qualities.
He's not like Yul Brynner or like the Terminator. He's got like, the first Terminator.
Yeah.
It's more like Data with the emotion chip. He's Thor.
God, don't. No, don't.
Come on.
Don't muddle this up.
It was a nice analogy, but let me have my Star Trek.
Don't start. So they're trying to torture Morpheus, and so the plan when they get out, right? If I would just gloss over the whole big tension sequence, and I actually love this. I love, as much as sure Switch and APOC are kind of red shirts, and it kind of feels inevitable they're there to die. I do kind of love that they're killed by Cypher just pulling their connections out, and they just drop dead. They can't defend themselves. It really paints it as super dangerous.
Yeah, it's scary.
This good stuff. Of course, Tank's able to get back up and blast them with the big lightning gun thing they have.
Right.
So, but I do love like that it becomes this question of like free humanity as we know it will die if they get these things out of Morpheus, if they get these codes. So the one way to ensure survival is unfortunately to sacrifice Morpheus and pull the plug. And they don't like that they have to do this, but you know, Tank says this, Trinity ultimately is agreeing, and Neo's going along with it to a point, and then he realizes that this is the moment. This is the moment where he has the choice. So he's like, "No, I'm going to go in." And this is the first real moment where he believes something. He believes there's a purpose. He doesn't believe he's the one yet, of course, but he believes he has a purpose. He believes he can accomplish change, and you know, he has a belief in something. And you know, we get the gun racks and all the rest of it, and that leads to them coming in.
Guns. Lots of guns.
At least them coming out of the lobby and shooting things up. And the lobby scene holds up very well, with the possible exception of the music. I think the music feels a little like okay,
it's fine.
It's the 90s.
It is pretty.
But you know,
yeah.
But you know, you know, all the jumping and cartwheeling while shooting the guns and the debris flying everywhere.
Yeah, the set pieces they don't last in these movies. They get destroyed. That one bathroom inside that last house we were in. Whew.
Oh yeah, because
tiles flying everywhere.
Tiles flying. I always love in a movie when like the corner of a sink breaks off when like someone lands on it. I always enjoy that. There's a visceral kind of crunch to it. I love.
Yeah, that porcelain. That's tough.
I think this is one of the things that I think the first movie excels at, is that even though it's a relatively big budget, and I guess again I mean relatively, is that it's still not a super huge budget, that they're forced to use a lot of practical effects. They're forced to be inventive with how they choose to shoot things. And I do think the carte blanche they got in the sequels to do whatever the hell they wanted ruined the inventiveness of the action sequences, because the action scenes in this hold up so well. They are so tight and they're very high conceptually, but they're very well thought out and they still hold up. Whereas again, if you look at that second movie and you watch that scene where he's fighting all the Smiths and they're all PS2 looking characters, that scene is just bad. It's just a bad, boring scene. And
yeah, we'll talk about more when we get to the sequel, because you know I do think it's odd that, I mean, obviously they had a really great villain in Agent Smith, like a really great villain. So I mean, even though he seemingly gets defeated here, he comes back, and then in order, like, how do you top, you know, a candle in the wind, 5,000 candles in the wind? Let's just make 5,000 Agent Smiths, since we can't make a better villain.
I think that's problem number one with the sequel. I don't think Smith should have came back, and I loved Hugo Weaving in this, but I think he was defeated, and I think him coming back, and maybe I'll feel differently when I watch it again, but I think him coming back kind of ruins the end of Neo's story in this movie a little bit.
It's kind of confusing also, like, so did he not defeat him then? Like, did he not die?
Yeah, it muddies up the ending of this one, which is so. It's one thing when a sequel's not very good. It's another thing when it retcons something that was good about the first one, and it's like, oh no, what are you doing? Stop ruining parts of it.
I don't know, but again, I don't really remember so much all the details of the Matrix. The Matrix Reloaded.
And I think that's one of those things where is why in my head it feels more like fan fiction, because I don't really take it as canon, because I like no, you ruined part of the first film, so therefore I'm going to ignore you as part of is canon, and this is the end of the story, and then everything that comes after is like a extra thing. It's like a tie-in novel that's not really obviously official, that it really happens, you know. And that's just a feeling that you either strike or you don't, depending on what your movie sequels do. Typically it tends to happen more when the sequels come much later. It's kind of notable that this, you know, didn't. It was 4 years, but that was normal enough for making 2 movies.
Sure.
So I don't know, it's a bit weird. But anyway,
something's definitely lost when you like take out the practical effects, you know. And obviously this has a nice mixture of both, but so much of it is practical, and like the fight scenes and the stunt work and the choreography, like, it's so strong. Like, there's a reason why action movies changed forever after The Matrix came out.
Yeah. And some in a way for bad. There's always that problem where there's a lot of bad copies that are trying to achieve it, and you have that weird period. And this was especially bad with the Matrix because for years there was the bullet time like knockoff stuff.
Not just that, like the look of the Matrix, like it is a really cool looking movie. Like it kind of dated in like the trench coats and stuff, but man, they looked really awesome. So, and then like we get all the stuff afterwards, like Underworld and like lots of movies that are trying to take the coolness of the Matrix and copy it, and it kind of makes the movie feel a bit dated when it shouldn't, because it started that, it was it's just because it followed up with all these bad copies that this movie can kind of be affected, especially if you're watching it for the first time now.
Yeah, I don't think that affects me with this one in particular, the outfits and stuff. I think enough time has passed that I just, like, I take the Matrix as its own unique thing, and I don't think about what it influenced with that stuff. And to an extent, the action as well. Although the action sticks out, maybe just because the effects are a little dated, so those fancier camera moments where... Because they had to fill in between the frames with, other stuff to, like, make it up the 360 degrees and all that, but... So you have this moment. Wait, actually, this is a good time to probably mention this. Is I watched the Blu-ray of this, and every so often it's been a while since I watched the Blu-ray, at least on the main big TV with the surround sound and stuff, and every so often I'll trick myself into thinking, yeah, I can just get used to just streaming stuff or buying stuff digitally and just not bothering. But holy shit, the Blu-ray looks so much better than a stream of it, like even a 4K stream, and it's the sound on the Blu-ray, like the sound mix in this movie is wonderful. The music especially, it was like the way the brass was coming in over my shoulder at certain moments. I felt visceral, the way it was like attacking my senses. It's one of the best sound mixes that I've heard on a disc.
Actually, my first experience with the Matrix, like anything to do with the Matrix, is that my mother and I were at the movies, and for some reason the movie didn't start. The trailers didn't start. It was like a couple of minutes after it should have. But it seemed like something was wrong, and then we saw the trailer for the Matrix showed up, but there was no sound in it. And then all of a sudden, like the sound kicked in, and it was overcompensated or something, because it was like everybody in the theater just went like we all jumped out of our seats. And basically, the movie kind of had a little bit of a stank on it because of that memory. It was such an awful experience to just be put in the middle of a Matrix trailer with the sound just blasting in your ears. But it turned out I was wrong. Like everything was fine. That's my very first Matrix experience.
Yeah, because even the idea that they're willing to go save Morpheus is this. Like, no one has chosen to go to where the agents are before. The fact that he's even daring to take them on this directly is a big deal. I sort of chuckled to myself because they got in the elevator shaft and I went, "Oh, Keanu Reeves in an elevator shaft. This usually ends badly."
Pop quiz, hot shot.
Pop quiz, Mr. Anderson.
That would be great.
Oh, that would have been great.
Scared.
If he walks out, he's like, "Pop quiz, Mr. Anderson."
Love it.
Because there's even a moment with the agents where I think they're trying to save him, and because they're shocked almost, they almost show emotion.
They said there's 3 of them there guarding Morpheus.
This is
There's no
insane.
place he can run from. He's in a place guarded by 3 agents.
Which is another point.
You have to directly go to them.
Which is another moment I just thought of there, just on back on the subject of Smith being different from the others, is that there's a moment where he asked them to leave the room, and they both look at each other like, "Wait, he's acting weird. Like, we don't do that. We don't ask each other to leave rooms for private conversations. What is this?"
Something in Smith is definitely broken.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Well, broken to them maybe, but I think it is, in a weird way, it is evolution. I think he is becoming more human, ultimately. But anyway, so we have the scene at the roof, which is where he does the whole bullet dodging shenanigans. Very fun. The dodge this. All that. Very good. And she's like, "Hey, how did you do that? You move like they do." Which I think is funny because from our perspective, we've not seen them. We've seen them dodge bullets. We saw the agent right at the start kind of whoosh around a little bit, but we didn't see it in slow motion like this. So it didn't look the same to us. It wasn't until Trinity said, "You move like they do," where I went, "Oh yeah, I guess that is how that looks, but in
Yeah.
slow enough to see it.
Right. Yeah.
It almost made me want them to like replay it just so I could see it in like real time. Let me see him whooshing a little bit. But again, maybe I'm not sure. Yeah, but I think that's maybe an intentional thing, is the idea that when he's doing it, we can comprehend it because he's comprehending it. So it's not this just whooshing a thing. But I think the helicopter. One of the effects I love in this is the way they always have the glass ripple before it smashes. I do like that.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
A little touch.
It's probably accurate. Like just everything. Like even though it's a solid piece of mass, like it still would bend and ripple like that before it breaks. It's cool.
I'd love to see the receipts. I'd love to see some real slow motion of like a giant glass, panel.
Yeah, it like liquefies for a second. Cool.
But no, there's like, because I think my favorite moment of all this, right? There's a lot of good things here. There's Morpheus running through the sprinklers are going off. Because there's a moment where Neo's got on the minigun and he's like, Morpheus, get up. And like Morpheus just snaps the handcuffs. He's just like, yeah, F this. And I think that's beautiful because the idea that Neo's now there for him too. It's like a two-way relationship.
Yeah.
It's not just this one-sided thing anymore. But
plus he's drugged. Like he has to do it while basically sedated, and he still is able to break through. That part of the Matrix. And
I think the smart thing the script does here, and I think this is super smart, is that sure we can get into the idea of the chosen one and that he's going to save the world, blah 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 blah. But ultimately, that's a very fantastical concept. It's not something we can necessarily cling to for emotional attachment. But what we do attach ourselves to as the audience is that we've been following Neo, and his guide through this world, the guide who believes in him and cares about him, is Morpheus. And we've seen him essentially take him in. And hell, even Tank called Morpheus a father. Before he was almost going to kill him, he said, you're not just a boss to us, you're not just a captain, you're a father. And so by turning like the emotional crux of the film into Neo trying to save Morpheus, it doesn't, I mean, sure, the one stuff and saving the world and being the savior of the human race, that is still important, don't get me wrong. But that's not what we care about in the moment. What we are rooting for in this scene is, no, we care about Morpheus because he was good to our main character and he deserves saving, and we want Neo to pull this off. And because of that connection, yeah, exactly, yeah, we just need him to be good, to do the right thing and to save someone. So we don't need him to be the savior. Because we've not seen Zion. I mean, this is something that I've said before. Me and Connor have talked about this a lot. Is that when you say you have to save the world, that's all good and well, but that's just a mass of like faceless people. It's individuals that you care about. It's individuals that you attach to, and Morpheus is who we're attached to here. So that's really cool. Obviously, we're going to see Zion in the sequel and stuff, and that's cool. But here it just focuses in and says this is about saving him, and we can attach to that as an audience. But the bit I really love though is so Morpheus gets dropped off after, because obviously there's the shot of them both jumping. Great, yeah. But I'm assuming everyone's seen it. I don't have to necessarily mention every moment. But the bit I do love is after the helicopter's a bit damaged, Morpheus has been dropped off on a roof. And the pacing of the edits here is wonderful. I don't know if this won like an award for editing, but the way it cuts to Morpheus rolling on the roof and then looking down, and then the slow motion of Neo making this choice. This is the moment I love, where he just says, I'm going to wrap my hand around this rope and like maybe hold on to the helicopter. Now, obviously, Trinity grabs the thing and just, shoots it, so it's just her that he's grabbing onto. But there's a moment where he's like, I'm going to try and... Maybe I can hold up this helicopter. And you can see it in his head, what he's thinking. He's thinking, there is no helicopter. That's what he's thinking. Like, that's what we've been set up in the movie to believe at this point, is that there is no helicopter. You can manipulate the code. So, do it. Save her. And he does. And, that's when... Because this is the thing, Neo, for the last like 30 minutes of the movie, has been struggling with what the Oracle told her. And as soon as like Morpheus sees this and he gets up and he walks towards and he's like, Trinity, do you believe? And she's like, yeah, kinda, I'm a little bit wet in my pants here. And Neo turns to Morpheus.
She's like...
Yeah. And he's got this look of concern in his face. He's like, Morpheus, the Oracle. And he just cuts him off with a smile on his face and says, she told you what you needed to hear. Nothing more. Like, that's it. That's all this was. You just proved who
He's
you
been
are.
duped.
Yeah. But obviously the way to escape, they get an exit in the subway, and they're almost out, but there's a homeless dude that turns into Smith. Because Smith, this is a because the other agents are like, oh, we've got the Sentinels. The Sentinels are going after them, and that's the other smart thing the movie does is that it sets up. They have a way to fight the Sentinels. They just set off an EMP. It's good, but the caveat is they can't use it when someone's hooked out of the Matrix, or it'll kill the person that's in the Matrix. So
you can't just be disconnected. They have to leave the Matrix.
Yeah, they have to like go through the process. Otherwise, they're essentially just been severed from their body and therefore dead. So we have
the mind.
So we have on the ship, we have the action and the sort of the ticking time bomb element of them trying to hold off and hide from the Sentinels, whilst Neo's. But that happens a little bit later into it though, because I do like that there's a bit of a reaction from them where, because Neo's about to run and he turns around and it's almost really cheesy and on the nose, but I kind of love it where Trinity's like, "What's he doing?" And Morpheus just leans in and goes, "He's beginning to believe." It's just like he's like, yeah, and that's the thing.
Some of those Morpheus lines, I'm like, okay, Morpheus, I get it.
The thing is though, is that at this point in the movie, you're so rooting for him to believe that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Go ahead. Yeah.
It doesn't matter how on-nose that line of dialogue is. You just kind of want to fist pump because you're along for the ride at this point.
Honestly, like this viewing, I got a little bit emotional with his journey at the end. Like, I don't know what it was, but like I was just so into it and so like invested in him and like, oh my god, he actually believes now, and that got me a little bit.
Well, I think the beauty of it is everything we've kept saying. Ultimately, this is the story of someone learning to believe in themselves, and that is emotional. Like, forget the saving the world, forget the science fiction, all of it. It's
almost like that's his reward for actually believing in himself. Yeah.
That's
doing the little thing that he's been rewarded with the big thing.
This is just about believing in yourself, and once you believe in yourself, anything is possible. And it's a movie, so it's literal. He starts just doing things, right? That's the beauty of filmmaking. But yeah, we get this fight and the fight mostly holds up. I think I said this last time. Obviously, them jumping with the gun, spinning around. I think all the punches and kicks look great in the subway. The only part of it that maybe is a little bit weak is the headbutts. I think the headbutts look kind of fake because obviously they don't actually headbutt each other. It's like they've perfected.
I thought that's very painful and dumb.
Well, it is, yes, but they've perfected how to fake the punches and the kicks to look good. The headbutts here, they look a bit soft.
I don't know. It's all right.
It stuck out to me. All right, it stuck out.
I like that Morpheus at least has a bruise on his head, and Agent Smith doesn't, of course, because he's a computer program.
I mean Neo.
No, I mean Agent Smith, because Morpheus headbutts Agent Smith when they're fighting, and when he's chained up.
Oh, earlier.
He's got a bruise on his head.
I thought you meant in the subway scene, which is why I said you mean Neo.
No, I'm talking about earlier, because there's headbutting twice.
There's multiple headbutting. There's multiple headbutt incidents in the Matrix. We can concur on this. It's a headbutt saga, okay? There's a lot of headbutting. Yeah, and Neo, like, essentially, he gets a bit bloody. They think he's losing, but he gets back up and he does the whole, just bring it pose with his hand. I don't know if that had the name then, but The Rock kind of gave it a name later, so just bring it. And he thinks he beats him because he puts him in front of the subway. Obviously there's the subtle touch of like when he breaks Anderson's like sunglasses, and it's like, oh wait, he got a hit in. Like he actually makes stand a chance. But then, of course, once he gets hit with the subway, he just like comes back out. And this was kind of teased actually earlier on when Trinity shot the other agent in the head at point blank. It didn't really kill the agent. It just killed the body he was occupying. So he just appeared elsewhere and it was fine. So Agent Smith just steps off the subway train because he could just shift. He just jumped to that. And at that point, he was like, "Oh shit! Okay, well maybe I can't actually win yet. I'm gonna run." So it becomes this run for the telephone line whilst they're fighting Sentinels. And it's a fun chase, and there's that moment where the guy's yelling about the cell phone being stolen, but it turns out it's Smith. So there's this idea that anyone can turn into Smith at any point. And unfortunately, he does get shot. But Trinity breaks out the rules here a little bit and says, "Well, the Oracle told me that the man I love would be the one, So you can't be dead because I love you, and that means you're the one. So get up, basically.
I do like the moment. I mean, it's so he dies in the Matrix, so he should be dead in real life, but because he has gone through this death and rebirth again, then he is now like maybe like a Jesus figure, but also like he's the one now. Now he's like unstoppable because he's already been through death.
I do admit I could do without the Jesus. Like it's not much of it, but there's a little bit there with the analogy.
Yeah, but it's mostly in the third movie, if I'm remembering
correctly.
Oh, sure.
I
really doubles down on that.
In the context of this one, I could just steer away from that if I'm honest. I think, to me, I kind of take this moment of almost like an extension of the spoon where he says, "Why am I down? These bullets mean nothing. This body means nothing. Like I am in control of my mind. Therefore, it doesn't matter how much this body gets hurt. Essentially, so it's kind of But again, really, I care more about the theme of this than I do the logics of it. I care about the fact that a loved one is rooting for him so hard and is like supporting him that he is able to get back up, even after he's knocked down.
Right? He needed one more pillar, which was love.
Yeah, it's just a fifth element again, right? You get Morpheus is one pillar, Trinity's another one.
Morpheus definitely loves Neo.
Oh, he definitely does. Yes. And he gets up, and there is something so satisfying about Smith trying to fight him, and then Neo just kind of looks bored, and then just kind of shifts to one hand.
Aside, and like, I can block whatever you got.
Yeah, and then he just jumps inside him and makes him. And obviously, my favorite shot of this whole thing is probably when you see his POV, and he literally just sees the code now. He just sees the green code going up and down of the walls and stuff. Is stuff, and the other agents, get scared and run. Whenever you mentioned it, I reminded of it because I was thinking about Trinity kissing him in the chair when he's like, technically maybe dead, and I was thinking, oh yeah, we forgot to mention that Cypher got kind of pervy with Trinity when he was on the phone with her and he was killing the other ones. He was kind of like, oh, I've been into you, and, he's like, you're a very attractive woman, Trinity, and he's been all pervy. I don't know. Does it surprise you that someone who fantasizes being a rich white dude is also a bit of a creep? Is that something that is shocking? Probably not.
Not really.
He's essentially, he wants the life of I know it's just a dark joke. I'm not going to say it, but people could think of names. Right? He wants the life. I
got mine in my head.
Yeah, of certain people.
It's not too difficult to think of one.
No, sadly, yes. But yeah, and he picks up the phone and they set off the EMP and the sentinels go down, and we didn't talk too much about the design of this world beyond just it being a bit sort of Borg meets Geiger meets whatever. But I do like the visuals and the contrast.
Too much outside of the Nebuchadnezzar.
No, that's one of the weird things is that when you get to the second movie and there's like all these different ships going to Zion, it's like, oh yeah, there's like they say there's more ships in this movie, but we never see any more ships. It feels very isolated. It feels like this is just their one thing.
I do love that the design of the Nebuchadnezzar, though, is old future tech. Like everything is broken and there's wires everywhere.
It's very cyber.
Parts are rusted. Their clothing is like
falling apart.
Hand-me-downs from like 50 years ago.
The chairs are like breaking. There's like bits of
there's like fuzz coming out of them.
Yeah. It's very cyberpunk. It's very makeshift and everything's thrown together, and
it's such a contrast because when they're in the Matrix, they have everything is pristine, like
clean.
When Morpheus's crew is in the Matrix, everything is new and shiny and pristine and glossy, and then in the reality, everything is just sort of whatever scraps, whatever they can find. Even
away from the characters, though, like the rest of the world in the Matrix is very clean. Like the rooms are almost too clean and empty, almost as if a computer designed them. In fact, that's one of the things we even talk about is from a mythology standpoint. Smith talks about how this is the second version of the Matrix. The first version failed because they tried to make it this perfect thing where everyone was happy. They tried to make something nice for everyone where everyone would be just completely happy, but human brains just wouldn't accept it. Too many people tried to rebel against it because they just knew it was fake. And I kind of took that speech just in terms of a message. I was like, I think that's maybe more implying that we kind of have to earn it or we'll reject
we
it.
know when something isn't real.
They have to give us the shitty imperfect like late 90s for it to seem real enough to buy it.
The height of human civilization.
Yes.
Y2K.
Napster's booming.
This is a very Napster era, isn't it?
Yeah. CD-ROMs are all the rage. What else is going on in the late 90s? I don't know. Backstreet Boys, I didn't think.
Chumbawamba.
Chumbawamba. Get knocked down, but I get up again.
That might be early 2000s. I'm not very good with music.
I think that was 90s. That seems old enough to be 90s to me, but I mean, yeah, I'm also not very good with
it's
that.
just such a funny name that it sticks with me.
Yes.
Chumbawamba.
Chumbawamba. Yeah, I will admit, I was speaking of creepy, pervy people in real life. I did cringe when after the Rage Against the Machine song on the credits, it switches to a Marilyn Manson song, and I was like,
yeah, that's just a recent development too.
Well, it was kind of rumored for a long time, but yeah, it's properly.
Well, it's always been a little bit odd. Like he date like Evan Rachel Wood when she was like 18, maybe.
Well, that's what a lot.
Seems like very much like a grooming thing that he's into.
Yeah, but she actually opened up. I mean, she's been talking about the abuse she suffered for years, but she finally sort of named them like officially recently. And I say recently, relatively recently.
Yeah, it's a shame. I really like. I always thought Marilyn Manson was a pretty stand-up dude, but I was wrong.
It sounds like the character he portrayed was a lot more like the real him than anyone would have liked. I mean, he had a room that he called a rape room in his house, so. Yeah, so I kind of credit because I haven't really heard any of his stuff because no one's really playing it for obvious reasons. So when I heard the song kick in the crowd, I was like, oh, Manson, shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the Rage Against the Machine song is perfect though. If you listen to those lyrics and you know.
I mean, even the name of the band.
I mean, yeah, Rage Against the Machine. Yeah, very good point. But yeah, that's the beautiful thing is that because after he wakes up, he kisses Trinity, and it just the final scene of the movie. There's not much of an explanation of what's going on. And this is why it feels like such a perfect ending because it feels like this can be ambiguous as to what he actually does next. I think having a sequel where we find out that a lot of the other people in Zion don't really believe in this one nonsense. But Morpheus is the zealot. Everyone else is a bit doubtful and stuff. It dilutes the message a little bit, even though I understand that you can tell other messages, you can tell other stories with other analogies going down that path. It does dilute the first movie on its own a little bit. But it's Neo on the phone talking to the agents because they're doing this because the movie started with them tracing a call, which is how they found Trinity. So the movie bookends it with them trying to do the same thing to Neo, but the code stops. Neo can control it, so he just says, no, you're not finding me, basically. But he's saying, look, you don't want these people to know what they can be. I'm going to show them a world without borders or boundaries. I'm going to set them free. And that scares you, but this is the way it's going to be, kind of thing. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, I can't remember the exact, word for word, but that's the sentiment. And what you do with that is up to you. And that's the funny thing about it, is I think even that line at the end isn't him saying, we're going to kill all the machines and kill your race. He's saying, no, we're going to have freedom, but theoretically, the implication is like you can choose to do this peacefully and coexist with us. We're not out for blood to kill you, or I'm not out for blood to kill you anyway.
Where are they going to get their energy from, though? They're the battery source.
You said it earlier. Use some animals. Grow some horses. Horses will have plenty of energy.
They're like a C battery. Obviously, humans are AA.
Is that because we have better brains? There's more electrolytes going on. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
But I just think that's interesting because again, going with the metaphors of the movie, it's not about just like defeating. It's like, no, you can still exist in some fashion. Like, we're not trying to necessarily remove you from the equation. We just want our freedom to exist also. Which ties into not only just the general cyberpunky themes that we've been talking about self-realization, but also the trans stuff. Like, we're not trying to replace you. We're just trying to exist. As free. You want to exist. We don't want our existence to be questioned or controlled.
I don't think Neo or anyone is even considering like going up against the actual machines outside of the Matrix, because how can they? Like, those things are enormous and everywhere, and the whole outer crust of the world now is just dominated by machines. Like, presumably, even if they freed all the humans, it wouldn't be enough. Although maybe that gets answered in the third movie. I can't remember.
I think no, some of the stuff we're talking about is kind of addressed thematically in the third movie, but I think it's better here where it's just kind of hinted at and it's kind of open and we can think about it and talk about it. And you know, it's almost ruined in a way by overdoing it and actually having all the things happen on screen without it being without it adding anything extra. It just makes it a bit too watered down, I guess. But again, I'm saying that from memory. We'll see how they are when we watch them again. But there's a lot in that ending. And the journey's complete. He's self-realized and he can do amazing things because he believes in himself, which literally ends with him flying up to the camera like he's goddamn Superman.
Yep. He can fly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, you know, again, the idea that he feels like he can fly because he feels free, and that's it. The fact that he's literally flying is not even that important in a weird way. It's just that's what's happening. So, yeah, the movie's so thick with these themes. Like almost every scene, I was noticing just how they were saying it in the dialogue, how it was like tying into the overall theme. It really is a tight film, and that no scene almost is wasted in furthering the central ideas of what it's saying. And that's when I get frustrated at movies that are boring, because there's so many scenes in certain movies where this is just plot setup, but it's not actually achieving anything other than just saying, you know, thing A needs to be put into thing B to stop thing C, and that's it. There's so much more going on here.
I mean, I don't know if you remember when The Matrix came out. We're kind of similar in age, but I'm a little bit older. So but when it came out, it was like life changing for people. Like everybody was talking about, you know, are we in the Matrix? Just how can you prove that you're not in the Matrix kind of a deal? And which is, you know, philosophy that goes back a lot. I'm not a philosophy student. I don't study it, but obviously I've heard of like the cave, Plato's The Cave and stuff like that, especially after this movie, because a lot of people talked about it. You know, or like the story of like the fish who like come across a fish and are like, hey, how's the water? And then the fish swims away and like, what the hell is water? Like they don't know that they're in it, kind of a deal. But
anyway. I'm not against philosophy, but sometimes it sounds really stupid when you point out how you point out some of it.
Well, I'm not very good at describing it, obviously. Do you know about the Plato's cave and stuff like that, where like if people are strapped in a cave and they've never left and all they see are like shadow puppets on the cave wall, then that's their only reality. And somebody escapes and goes outside and says, hey, there's more out here. Like there's a whole world out here. And they're like, what are you talking about? The only thing that exists is the cave painting or the cave shadow puppets.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, if you say to a two-dimensional being there's a third dimension, they can't comprehend what a third dimension is. The same way you say to us there's a fourth dimension, and we're like, wait, what? No, it isn't. Okay. And admittedly, as a sci-fi nerd, I'm like, well, the fourth dimension is time, obviously, but that's another question. It's another debate, which I am not qualified to have, for the record.
Well, we're moving through the fourth dimension at the same rate as everybody else.
Yeah, and once we have time travel, and then once we have time travel, though, it's a proper variable, just like the other 3 dimensions.
I don't want that. I don't want time travel. It seems messy.
It's messy. Yes. You turn out to be your own great grandparent.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know why you assume that if I have time travel, I'll immediately go back and start sleeping around, but.
That's not what I implied. I implied that you may have a child one day that they will go back in time. It doesn't have to be you that's sleeping around.
Okay.
Anyone in the chain could be the one sleeping around. That does not reflect on you. That was not the intention of that joke.
Okay.
The Matrix is pretty great. It's very fulfilling. It's a very uplifting film, ultimately, bizarrely, despite the fact that it obviously starts off in a dark place with a character trapped in this world. But it never actually, you know, it never lets itself get too depressing. It's a film about being hopeful. It's a film about being able to change and be able to become what you want to be and what you believe in yourself to be. It's actually, and I think that's why you got you said you got emotional with some of the story beats with Neo towards the end, because you're so invested.
Totally.
And I think it's one of these things where when a film is this good and it warrants the repeat viewings, it works multiple times where you're not just getting bored because it's just a simple plot. And all the things, all the cylinders are working, the acting, the music, the direction, everything. When all that's working and you have those themes, I think it does become more emotionally attaching over the years. I think when I watched Terminator 2, I never got that emotional in a Terminator 2 when I was younger. But the more I see it, the more I understand what the film's saying, the more I think about it, the more I get a little bit emotional at the end of Terminator 2. And I think The Matrix is the same thing, where there are moments where, and I always say that I tear up more at happy moments than I do at sad moments. And I think it is moments where when someone believes in themselves, like you're describing, where I might tear up because, they've got me so by the hook here, and everything has been built upon everything else. It's a house of cards that is, and this is why so many films are bad, because it's hard to have a house of cards stay up. But when it does stay up and you get to that peak is rewarding. Damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie is basically flawless. I think it was really fun to revisit it after a long time, and it not only holds up, but I think it does get better. And when I first watched it, it was a really cool action movie with cool looking people in it. And now when I watch it, I see so much more. And even though I've watched it many, many times, I have this whole new lens of watching it with the Wachowski sisters now, and how that changes everything. And I got even more out of it this time.
Yeah. And, and they're coming out and they're talking about that part of their lives happened, relatively much later than The Matrix coming out. So it's very interesting to see all these themes and all these messages and all these things that they were thinking about in that film already. Right. It shows how much a part of their life, and presumably had been for a long time before this, it was. So it's very interesting to sort of think about it in those terms.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, The Matrix is good. Were you surprised for a shocking revelation of that? I'd probably not. So here we are. Tara, would you like to rate The Matrix?
Yeah, I'll be the first one to say that it's a 10 out of 10. It's a perfect science fiction movie, action movie. I mean, I really do think, like you said, it's lightning in a bottle, and everything works. Everything in this movie works. I really love it.
I'm going with a 9.5.
Why? Because of the Morpheus line that you don't like?
No, not because of the Morpheus line, but because I can't just hand out 10s willy-nilly. Like every time you're super enthusiastic,
any movie deserves it.
You hand out a 10, right? There is a class of movie that is excellent that isn't quite a 10 for whatever reason, and this is just this sitting on that periphery, right? That's exactly where it is. Don't look at me like I'm being a dick because I gave it a 9.5. A 9.5 is such a good score. Do you know how many few movies? In fact, someone did the math. I think it was Tyler did the math on
You don't think it's like a half a point higher than Truman Show?
Oh, I love Truman Show though.
Yeah, but do you love it as much as The Matrix?
I do love them both a lot. I don't know. Why do you assume that I can't love Truman Show and Matrix? I mean, clearly you have an opinion. Clearly you think The Matrix is better than Truman Show, but
I mean, honestly, The Matrix is like an 11 out of 10. Like, it is great. It was high up on my science fiction movie list too. Like, it was up there with the rest of the 10s.
Sure. I mean, sure. Matrix is fantastic. Like, the problem we're having here, this communication kerfuffle we're having here, is not that you're thinking that I don't love this enough, I'll give it a 10, but it's just that my numbers are a higher standard. I've got a higher standard to get to a 10.
I don't understand how The Matrix does not reach those standards. That's all I'm saying. Like, your rating is controversial.
My 9.5 out of 10 is controversial.
After our conversation, like, how can it not be a 10?
Look, I'll say this: it's improved. Like I think when I saw it when I was younger, I didn't really rate movies when I was I was 10 when this came out. I didn't rate movies then, but it would have probably been like an 8 or 8.5. For a long time, I'd have said a 9. I think this time watching it and the last time I watched it, when I talked about it a couple of years ago, These two viewings are by far my favorite two viewings I've ever had of this movie. So it has gotten better with age. It's inching closer. Maybe one day I'll give it that 10. But right now, I'm not quite giving it the 10.
All right. Controversial.
Coming from the crazy woman who gave Rocket Man, not the Elton John Rocket Man, might I add, the Rocket Man about going to Mars with the dude whose name I can never remember.
Harlan Williams.
There you go, Harlan Williams. You give that like an 8, so don't even start.
Rocketman's a fantastic movie.
Yes. I'm pulling out an old tactic here. I'm ruining your credibility by giving up a really controversial rating you gave.
I mean, I'm not disappointed with that rating. Like 8 seems appropriate. Just don't remember what I rated it.
I don't really remember, but I remember it being too high. I'm ballparking a little bit. Someone's gonna go
That
check.
movie's a blast.
Someone's gonna go check. Someone's gonna check. Go, by the way, Peter, you were wrong. It was a 9. I'll be like, what? She's even more crazy than I thought. Even more crazy than I thought. All right. Is anyone surprised this was a 2-hour plus episode? Probably not. This was always going to be a long one. I think almost a more interesting conversation is because I think it was a good conversation. I think there was a lot to talk about with this movie because it's saying so much and it's doing so much to say those things. I am very fascinated by what the conversation for the next two are going to be, and we'll get there before too long. So probably maybe in about a month for Reloaded. I'm just roughly guessing. I haven't looked at the schedule, but so
4 years.
Well, no, we have to do them before 4. Come on. There's a reason why we're doing them. Come on.
Are we doing Animatrix also?
I don't think we have to.
No? Okay.
It's a series of shorts. I know they packaged it as a release, but it's just,
It's better than the other 2 sequels.
Okay. I think I'm good. I don't think I need to. So yes. All right, I've made it this far into the episode. Put the phrase "deja vu" into the comments to let us know that you got to the end. Tara's going to post for the thumbnail, so here we go. No sunglasses at the ready.
I'm in a hotel room. I don't bring anything with me. You're lucky I brought podcasting stuff.
3, 2, 1, pause.
Oh, am I in frame?
Do you want to do that again with your front hand up a bit? There you go. I even go up a bit higher. Yeah, there you go. There you go. There you go. That take 2. I think that take 2 will be right on the money. Oh dear! I was going to tell the people what's coming up next time because I don't know. Vote winner. What won the last vote?
I don't remember.
Strange Days? I think it was Strange Days.
Cool.
I think it was Strange Days. No, 90s movie. We're doing lots of 90s stuff.
Nice.
Just now, apparently. The year of our childhoods. But the decade of our childhood, the year. It's a short childhood.
Reborn in 99?
Yes, very good. Very good. While I look for some funny YouTube comments in the trailer, how about you tell everyone about Patreon?
Yeah, so if you enjoyed the review, please check out the Patreon page. It's patreon.com/ManifestTV. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you'll actually get bonus episodes for the Ace. So if you're looking for your favorite B-movie science fiction, like some starring David Carradine, I think Future Force is on there. That one has a robot glove, a power glove. That one's pretty fun. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these reviews 1 day early. Plus some other shows you get a week early, so it's worth it.
Since there is no, or let's be honest, since there's no easy way to look for the good YouTube reviews, or the YouTube comments, I should say, we're reverting to the IMDb reviews because the 1 out of 10s on this should be amusing. So let's do it. Let's go to the 1-star reviews on imdb.com for The Matrix. It's 142.
Ooh.
142. I mean, there are thousands, obviously, but the title of the first one is unfathomably overrated.
Whoa.
It's all effects. The third review here says good, but ... Well, hold on. If it's good, but it has to be better than a 1. If you're saying it's good, but there's some caveats, that still has to score like a 6.
Maybe something like, really offends them.
Yeah, this is from 1999. This is the good thing about IMDb. It's been around since the movie came out. Bizarrely,
that's right.
Yeah, good, but let's read a little bit of this one. I side with the negative crowd on this one, with the risk of sounding pompous. Oh, I don't think. Giant fish. That's the name. I don't think you'll sound pompous here. I've got complete faith in your writing ability. I have to say this. To believe that this is a brilliant film suggests a low level of education and an underdeveloped personal philosophy. Not pompous. He's still not pompous. I think he's right in the line. This is a man of integrity. This Mr. Fish. There.
Student of philosophy.
There. I've said it. The question of realness, of reality, is a 400-year-old Sartesian idea. Actually, it was explored interestingly in the old Star Trek episode Spectre of the Gun in 1969.
Isn't that the gangster one?
No. Isn't Spectre of the Gun the one where... Oh, maybe that's the gangster one. Yeah, maybe it must be. I was thinking it was the one where the Klingons have given like one tribe weapons on a planet, so Kirk and co have to give the other tribe weapons just so they can compete at the same pace. I don't think it is though, but that's what the title made me think. But given that it's about questioning reality, I feel like you're probably more right, because that one's more to do with, the fakeness.
Yeah, I'm confused by that. So it's been around for hundreds of years, but like we can't keep exploring it.
I know.
We can't use it towards a modern setting, even though it's a universal thought, existential thought. Is our reality real?
He continues. The rest of the film is an obvious rip-off of the Terminator. All right, let me stop you right there. The fact that there's an AI villain makes it a rip-off of the Terminator. Like, no one's ever allowed to have an AI villain ever because the Terminator. I mean, I love the Terminator.
It's done totally new in this also. It's not Terminator at all.
I also think that just because Matrix has a fake digital world that we all plug into, the other things can't... Because I remember people saying Inception is a rip-off of the Matrix because it was people going to sleep and waking up in a world. No, just because this is a concept that can have other stories that do different things with it. But Terminator is such a stretch to me. Like what connects them is so thin.
It would have to be like that. The post-apocalypse of just the robots, taking over Earth and trying to kill off any stray humans. That's like the only thing I could think of.
Yeah. Oh baby. We can sort by review date, so it's all the 1999 ones. That's way more interesting.
The people who are on the wrong side of history.
Yeah. Unoriginal and uninspired. This is from Happy Cat.
Original. That is so strange to me. Like, this is such an original movie.
No,
sure, it's taking themes and stuff that have been around forever.
Well, no. To be fair, apparently there are some plot elements that were in animes before the movie. So I don't think it's...
I don't have any knowledge of anime. And I can definitely see the influence in the movie.
Sure, yeah.
We don't really talk about it.
I think we have to acknowledge that and say that, okay, it's original to a Western audience mostly. I don't know how original the whole concepts are, but that doesn't necessarily, reduce the fact that they packaged it in a really tight, scripted film with all the mess.
Unique direction. Yeah.
So anyway, so that's uninspired and original one. This is from the 2nd of April 1999. That's very early, actually. I've heard the next one's from the 2nd of April. That must have just come out at the start of April. This is what I'm learning. So I'm not going to read all of these, each of these points. You get 5 numbered points, and they're all quite big. The first paragraph is about Keanu being one of the worst actors of our era.
How dare he? He's a treasure. I mean, he's not a great actor, but he's reliable for what you hire him for, which is the man learns how to do his stunts. So there's kung fu, and he looks really cool.
Number 2 from Mr. Happy Cat. Very shallow and poor development of an unoriginal idea.
Oh, that hurts. Shallow.
Look, because the next sentence of that is the idea that our reality is not real is hardly original. Okay, so no one's ever allowed to do that idea ever again.
Right?
Is that what you're saying? Shut up. That's stupid.
It's just the hero's journey.
I mean, I'm sick of how many things are remakes, prequels, and reboots now. What does this guy think now? If he thought Matrix in 1999 was too unoriginal, what the hell? Number 3, the story dragged and we were forced to sit through an explanation of the Matrix that was completely obvious. A couple of visual effects would have gotten the point across in less than a minute with more effect. Given how many people I remember being confused about the film, which I don't think is a confusing film at all, but people at the time were confused, so I don't know if I agree with that based on that
Actually,
idea.
I heard that the script had to be sent back to rewrite many times because it was too confusing, and everybody who was offered the role originally said no because they didn't get it. So I mean, there is more exposition and stuff in the film because the script was just unreadable.
Yeah, but the script's a funny thing though because you don't have the visuals to,
Yeah,
I mean, they're written.
It is such a a high concept thing that you're like, I need help.
Yeah,
and it wasn't until they hired someone to storyboard 600 panels or whatever for the film that it immediately was sold. Yeah, okay, we'll make this movie because we get it now.
I love how this is meant to be a silly funny bit where we just laugh at some of the weird comments, but Tara's defending every single thing I bring up.
Well, because you're reading 1 out of 10, and they're all trash. They're all trash comments. I did have a philosophy teacher in high school. He was a philosophy teacher, but I took a different class with him. And somebody brought up The Matrix because Reloaded was about to come out. And he just went off on how he thought The Matrix was so dumb and everybody thinks it's so great, but really Plato had this idea centuries before. Okay, dude, it's the same thing. I really respected this teacher too, but this is the one area where I'm okay, you're coming off a little bit pompous here. Mr. High and Mighty. I'm a philosophy teacher.
The idea of the Matrix is poorly thought out. Instead of creating believable world and believable rules for the Matrix, the plot resorts to physical fighting, which make no sense at all. Okay. Number 5, no sense of despair, darkness, or power from the futuristic scenes. The future world is portrayed so little that we don't really get a sense or a chance to be overwhelmed by how horrible it could be. I think it implies a lot with what we see, with what they're wearing, with what they're eating, the slop. With how they're hiding, I'm fine with that. Clearly, a lot of the marketing had the sentence "What is the Matrix?" and I think Morpheus says it, or Neo says it a few times in the movie.
At the very end of the credits, there's a little thing that says "Go to whatisthematrix.com."
Yeah.
Password is
something.
I can't remember the password. Steak was the password.
Yeah. So.
I went there, but it's just an advertisement for the HD 4K Blu-ray set. That's all it is now.
Well, sure. I mean, times have moved on a bit, but so this was clearly just in the market a lot. And this title, the next one, was "What is the Matrix?" Dumb. They thought they were so smart.
I think that's enough.
We can wrap that segment up. Thank you very much for joining us, of course. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers. I realise I already got Tara to tell you about Patreon, and I've not thanked the Patreon producers yet, which is a weird order of doing it in. But,
you needed a diversion.
Tis what it is, yes. And if I said to Tara, cause a diversion, without giving her, the Patreon thing to do, she would have been like a deer in the headlights.
I just would have talked about how much I love The Matrix and how your rating is BS.
So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Bordner, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. They are Patreon producers for the month. But yes, that's one of the higher tiers. You get a producer credit. So yes, go to Patreon, like, subscribe, all those things. They're all very important. And join us next time for Strange Days. And there'll be bonus episodes up on Patreon too soon. Look forward to that. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching sci-fi and computer. Add salsa.
There is no spoon.